Our main character reflects that around 15 years ago, he was the leader of Sapa, the unorthodox Kung Fu clan Mutang, branded as cursed and evil, drew his ire. His patience hit its breaking point, and though he didn't personally take part in the fighting, a massive war erupted. From the outset, his primary focus was the Mutang clan. He razed 3 of their palaces and executed their elders and chief. All he wanted was an answer. Why was he being accused of crimes? What drove them to declare war? They saw him as cruel, blasphemous, and self-obsessed, but their opinions meant nothing to him. Even after a truce was established, the once revered Mutang, a sacred Taoist site for a millennium, saw its influence crumble, becoming the lowest among the 9 martial arts clans. It wasn't his concern. Still, as the saying goes, you reap what you sow. He was far from the composed master he once aimed to be, his temper often getting the better of him. The hypocrites surrounding him feigned care only in public. The mere thought of continuing such interactions made his skin crawl. As time went on, his sharp and unwavering mind brought vivid memories of the past rushing back. He understood it now. It had been a forewarning, an unavoidable epiphany he could do nothing to change. In this trying period, his disciples, elders, and loyal companions who helped build Sepichan stood firmly by his side. Yet, he noticed one person missing, his student Zhang Wumiyang. Despite his flaws, the boy was fiercely loyal to him, embarking on a quest to find the herb of eternal youth for his master. He imagines the boy at the foot of a mountain, clueless about medicinal herbs, likely yanking up a random weed. The man longs to see him one last time before he passes. His breathing grows heavier, more labored. Perhaps the end is near. He's 80 now. Why do so many thoughts flood your mind at a time like this? How difficult was it to climb to this position? His name was Hukremyugan, the master of Sepichan, a man who embodied 3 cruelties. To rise to such a place, one had to betray the virtuous, trample the wretched, and stab an ally in the back. Betrayal and deceit were the very foundations that elevated Sapa. Though people branded him a scoundrel, it was precisely because of this that he overcame the trials of the world, reigning for 40 years as king of Sapa. Hukremyugan could spend his days indulging with his cherished concubines. The treasuries overflowed with silver and gold, and with a single gesture, any problem could be resolved. This was the essence of supreme power. Yet, life is the greatest wealth of all. How can one defy the will of heaven? When the time comes, one must depart. If he had known this day would come, he would have emptied the treasuries, spent every last coin. After all, he had yet to spend a passionate night in his new room with Huayan. With every breath, life slipped further away from him. He could hear his loyal servants speaking of him, their voices heavy with sadness. Tears of joy flowed endlessly as they thought of this villain finally meeting his end. They were thrilled by the prospect, eagerly anticipating the chance to be rid of him. Sakin, the only one who had received attention since he turned 60, was the one he had poured his efforts into. He gave Sakin everything he himself had been denied as a student. The man was stunned by what he might have done wrong. Why such animosity toward him? Sakin lived in constant fear that Zhang Wumiyang might return unexpectedly. Every day, after placing the holy water, he prayed fervently. The eldest elder imagined this wretch living forever and shuddered at the mere thought. Sakin embraced everyone, assuring them that all their dreams would soon come true. Hukremyugan, observing their happiness, realized the thoughts running through their minds. They were cursing him, pointing fingers, calling him cruel and despicable. But reflecting on it, they had always been like this. Then again, so had he in the way he lived his life. This was the first time he had seen the Reaper of Death. If the Reaper called his name 3 times, he would instantly pass to the other side. It seemed he truly didn't have much time left. Hukremyugan decided to stop worrying and simply close his eyes. Suddenly, Zhang Wumiyang burst into the room in tears. He had gone searching for the herb of eternal youth and feared he wouldn't make it back in time. Hukremyugan felt a pang of gratitude at seeing the face of the one who had lived for him, even after being betrayed. Zhang Wumyang pulled out a flower and shouted that it was the herb of eternal youth. He had actually found it. Everyone was stunned. Did Hukrimigan really have one last chance? The old man couldn't believe his eyes. It truly existed, so he wouldn't die after all. Zhang Wumyang urged him to eat it. Without hesitation, the boy shoved the flower into his mouth. Hukrimigan wasn't pleased. He could have at least shaken off the dirt. But then, the emperor didn't survive. Zhang Wumyang had pushed the flower with all his might. The Reaper spoke his name for the first time. Zhang Wumyang told the emperor he would feed him next. Was he really going to squeeze the juice with his dirty hands? The boy began crushing the flower's petals, and the others leapt from their seats to stop him. Everyone lunged at him, while the emperor silently pleaded for them to leave him alone. Let them take their hands off him. Were they so repulsed by the idea of him living just a little longer? The Reaper began speaking his name once more. It seemed he hadn't swallowed enough of the herb and needed another dose. But there was no escape. Hukrimigan had to try again, though it was too late. He felt his soul slipping out of his body. If only he could live forever, perhaps he might achieve such a feat. It was truly the end for him now. There was no going back. No more wealth. No more blissful nights alone with Huayan. Suddenly, Hukrimigan noticed his soul being pulled back into his body. Could it really be the work of the herb of eternal youth? Yet, the Reaper grabbed him by the hair and started dragging him away. Strangely, even his soul could feel the pain. Fortunately, the Reaper lost hold of his soul. Hukrimigan had triumphed. He would live. What was he waiting for? Why wasn't he returning home? Did the Reaper still intend to take his soul? The herb of eternal youth truly worked wonders. The Reaper muttered bitterly, letting the fool rejoice, claiming he'd see who'd have a last laugh. But no man could defy fate like this. Hukrimigan resolved not to open his eyes or move until the Reaper was gone. Let the Reaper tire himself out. Before him stood the master of Sepichan, Hukrimigan. He heard voices fading, signaling that the Reaper of Death had finally departed. When he opened his eyes, his vision was hazy, as if he'd awoken inside a coffin. But why did he appear to be in the body of someone from Mutang? Regaining consciousness, he found himself face to face with Taoist monks. He couldn't comprehend how this had happened. One of the elders remarked that it was heaven-sent fortune. Hukrimigan decided to review recent events. He had consumed the herb of youth, and the Reaper failed to drag him away. Was that why he now inhabited this body? But that was utter nonsense. His body refused to move, and pain coursed through him. What was wrong with him? The elder told him that he was fine, so he should take it easy. He began to resent it. How could he not exert himself when it looked like all his bones were broken and his muscles were torn? The other said it was a special case. He went to look for medicinal herbs for his mentor and fell off the cliff. Memories of the owner of this body came over him. He was abandoned by his parents. Left alone, he met a kind Taoist monk who educated him. Sepichan's cursed master had seriously harmed him, causing his chakra to close down. He was only 17 years old when he ventured to Mutang Mountain to search for medicinal herbs in order to save his master. He couldn't determine whose memories these were. They came flooding in all at once, too many to make sense of. The monks had to act quickly as his pulse began to grow erratic. It turned out to be the effects of sacred Taoist energy. He couldn't figure out exactly what they were doing to him. How dare they meddle with the body of Hukrimigan, the owner of Sepichan? Had the Death Reaper ordered them to kill him? The monks cheered, pleased with their success. The energy of the six yangs had been safely concentrated in his abdominal region. One of the monks remarked that this was enough. Everything had returned to normal. The monk thanked the Supreme Elder and his brothers for their mercy. They didn't give a second thought to how much pain the accursed holy energy had caused him. The Supreme Elder declared that he had saved the life of a young man who had risked everything for him. After all, everything in this world is interconnected. One of the brothers asked if the young man's body could concentrate so much of the six yang energy, why not accept him as Myung Jin's disciple? The monks exchanged glances, and one replied that this was indeed the plan. However, such a thing had never been done before. This young man would be his first apprentice. But isn't fate itself favoring this kid? He could train the kid even though his own chakra is blocked. The Supreme Elder turned to Myung-jin and asked what he thought about it. Myung-jin replied that he had been thinking about it for a long time, but was hesitant to ask for permission. If the Elder approved, he would be happy to train him. The Elder noted that it was against tradition, but if no one objected, he gave his consent for Myung-jin to take this young man under his wing. He was immensely grateful to the Elder. He asked if he had already thought of a name for the temple. The man replied that the first generation adopts part of the teacher's name, i.e. Jin. He decided to name him Jin-mu. The guy thought that this name sounded like a truly Taoist, cheesy name. As soon as he heard it, goosebumps immediately ran down his body. He couldn't understand why the monks had created such an absurd system of names. They all used the same Chinese character, which made them look like faceless, personality-less simpletons. They decided to do it again, for the sake of Jin-mu's recovery. The boy mentally asked them not to do it. He yelled for those bastards to stop. If a man is injured, he is treated with a compress and a splint. How far do they intend to go? He was the most immoral and despicable, sweeping away everything in his path, the master of Sepichin, Hukermungen. He was the absolute ruler of Murim, which was divided into 3 parts. Now, in a completely destroyed Mutang, he has become an apprentice named Jin-mu. The Death Reaper is a real scoundrel. What the hell? Opening and closing his eyes, he was suddenly plunged into thoughts of Doden's death. Those memories were forever etched in his mind. Due to the 6 yang energy being concentrated in his body, all the strength he had turned to ashes. Great Hukermungen can't even master the wooden dragon technique. An unconditional reflex. Every time teacher Myung-jin calls him, he automatically and politely responds. This stupid head had the memories of idiot Dodong stored in it. Like a Kim Gango bracelet controlling Sung O-gun, the remaining memories in his head control his actions. Myung-jin, he remembers it like it was yesterday. During Mutang's fall, that scoundrel, despite burning half of his arm, stood in his way and guarded Ji-so's palace to the last. Myung-jin was one of the great disciples of that time. He had a special spirit, and the decision to let him live was a big mistake. We should have killed him. The teacher suggested lunch. Jin-mu replied that he would prepare everything right away. Despite his feelings, he replied politely again, a smile appearing on his face. Jin-mu's body does it all. The absolute lord of Murim, the master of Sepichin, Hukermungen. He chops vegetables, cooks soup skillfully. With all his heart, he prepared lunch for the teacher. He didn't understand what was going on. What would he have to do to get out of this damn body? Watching Jin-mu deftly wield his sword, the teacher was shocked. The guy is already starting to get good at infusing the sword with energy. After years of training, filling the sword with energy was still a difficult task, and only took him 3 months. It's been 3 months since his recovery, which he has dedicated to training. Because of his closed chakra, Myung-jin can't practice martial arts. So all this time he's been explaining the essence of the 6 yang energy to him in words. He had explained everything from the beginning to him, the Lord of Murim. He was so disgusted at the thought of having to continue learning the 6 yang technique. Memories of the owner's past instinctively control him. He cannot contradict his mentor. The teacher asked, could it be because of the 6 yang energy in his body? Perhaps if he learned at least one aspect, but no. Even if he was talented, it would take longer to fully master. He saw no logic, while Jin-mu, on the contrary, thought everything was quite logical. No matter how you look at it, it's Jin-mu's body. Inside is the soul of Lord Murim. The experience of his past life makes him seem so talented. Still, learning Mutang's martial art was quite interesting to him. Every day, he makes concessions. He even humbled himself and started eating vegetables. Unlike Sappa's fast-paced yet dangerous martial art, this path was more systematic and no less dangerous. He couldn't help but admit it was so popular for a reason. He was getting deeper and deeper into his training. As he immersed himself in the class, he remembered his first martial arts lessons. He was so focused that he didn't even notice how fast time was flying by. A whole year flew by without him realizing it. His weapon skills became impeccable. He decided that Mutang's first apprentice was well deserving of some stew after a hard workout. The boy could honestly admit that Mutang's martial arts were superior to anything he had studied before. However, there was still one problem. The chi energy did not increase. After practicing for a year, he had certainly become proficient with a sword that would have rendered anyone in Mutang speechless. But it wasn't enough for him, and he felt dissatisfied. How he longed to return to the familiar martial art of Sapa. To leap over several stages in one leap was what he dreamed of. But it was impossible because of the opposing internal forces. He needed to reach the absolute level as soon as possible. He regretted not being able to reduce all his training to zero. However, a lot had been accomplished in the last year. There was only one thing left to do: become a head student. It wasn't long before the full moon. The guy said it was impressive. If someone saw it, they would think that he had already become a head disciple. He was curious. Did that second-grade student know what politeness was, or was his ability limited to delivering grits? He had reached the second grade, and he couldn't even remember his name. The only thing left was to become the head disciple, and then the Supreme Elder himself would take him under his wing. If he became the head disciple, he would be able to reach the status of the Supreme Elder's associate. Everyone wants to be the head student. Usually the boy would just bring cereal, but today he's very talkative. He confessed that he too aspires to become an assistant. If he achieved this, he could receive the ultimate reward, and perhaps he would be able to discover the secret of dual energy. Flying over to him, Jean Mu clarified, "Did he really say double energy's secret?" The guy nodded affirmatively, and his surprise was unbounded. The technique of combining two energies in one body had been passed down from generation to generation in Mutang in strict secrecy. So it existed long before Hukermungen was born? Without a doubt, Mutang had yet to have a master who had learned the dual energy technique in practice. But what if he could master the technique? Hukermungen's martial art and holy Taoist energy in harmony. Then he would be able to use the dark dragon technique again. Jean Mu asked him if he was sure that becoming a head disciple would really reveal the secret of dual energy. Jean Mu replied confidently that yes, it was known to everyone. It turned out that everyone knew about it except him. Jean Mu decided to learn more about the secret of dual energy. The guy looked at him and said that he didn't understand what he was thinking, but he felt that achieving it was something out of the realm of the impossible. Because all the students will be competing for a place in the sun, not only students from their palace will participate, but students from other palaces too. He asked Jean Mu if he knew about the great competition. The guy chuckled to himself, thinking how stupid it was. Rivals? Is this some kind of joke? If you see the road, all you have to do is just go for it. Traditionally, the strongest will be the best. He has to get rid of all of them one by one, and then he will take the place of the head student. He had an opportunity to regain his dark dragon technique. If he solved one more problem, he could get rid of his magnanimity. After serving lunch, the teacher thanked Jean Mu, to which the boy replied that he didn't need to thank him, wishing him a pleasant appetite. At the same time, he pondered how to find a way to cure Myung Jin's mentor. It was truly a miracle that he had managed to survive after all his experiences. Jean Mu's body was in a constant state of tension. Every time he tried to leave the mountain, his legs would involuntarily go back up. To get rid of this condition, he first of all needs to take care of his mentor's health. There's only one way. The sick man needs as much meat as possible. Wicked bastards. Even if it was forbidden, he didn't understand how one could feed a sick person on grass alone. He had to put in a lot of effort to convince his mentor. The meat did improve his condition. Jean Mu became less anxious, so he was able to go out for a while. Meat is the best thing you can think of for recovery. He can't tell his mentor about his plans. If he starts asking questions, the whole truth might come out. He can't lie in this body, or everything will be revealed. In any case, after taking care of Myung Jin's recovery and becoming the head disciple, he would only have to master the dual energy technique. Someone approached him from behind. It was a man, and Jean Mu almost attacked him by acting machine-like. The guy asked if he was Jin's brother. Jean Mu wondered who it could be, since he didn't know this person at all. However, This guy had forearms that resembled human thighs, and his round belly made me wonder if he was related to a piglet. He introduced himself as Cheon Woo from Manhwa Palace. The boy wondered if he was definitely not a piggy banker. Maybe he could find out what he was. Jin Moo thought that, without a doubt, this guy was not putting his best foot forward. If he was really trying hard, he wouldn't have gained excess weight by eating only grass. He wondered where the idiot that had come in the other day had gone, and why the other one had shown up instead. Jin Moo decided that there was no need to worry about it. But it was strange that the guy had become a substitute for another student. He came to the conclusion that it was better not to dwell on it and continue his training. Walking up to him, the guy asked that he was from Manhwa Palace, so why isn't he practicing? Cheon Woo replied that he didn't have any training today. It seemed to him that this question didn't matter at all. Couldn't he have guessed that it was time to leave? The guy said that if he left, he wouldn't have anything to do anyway. He asked if he could practice here for a while. Jin Moo thought, wouldn't it be better to spend the day free from training, at least among his peers? He asked if there was no one in Manhwa Palace right now. The man nodded his head. But doesn't he have someone to go out with? Cheon Woo replied that everyone was very busy. The boy asked if it had ever happened that peers scattered when he approached. Cheon Woo wondered how Jin knew. So he doesn't train with them yet? Cheon Woo replied that it was probably because he was the most incapable among them. The groceries were originally supposed to be brought by someone else, but they asked him. Jin Moo asked if he made a mistake. Would he be laughed at? The guy replied that his appearance already makes people laugh. A foolish simpleton who is mocked by everyone, and the most untalented of them all. Strangely, he reminded him of someone. Cheon Woo-min is a rude but loyal guy. Even when he was beaten up, he always remained optimistic. The only person from Selekian he really misses. Jin Moo asked him to stay out of the way and train on the sidelines. If he didn't interfere, everything would be fine. But he was very curious. He decided to have a little look at how the apprentices in Mutang trained. Chilsung fist fighting technique. Isn't this the foundation of the basics? At first, Jin Moo thought the guy was just lazy, but he soon realized that he was actually putting in effort and training hard. But he doesn't take his body proportions into account. Cheon Woo is full-bodied. His movements are heavy and slow. So it's easy for the opponent to anticipate his moves. By the way, if your arms are short, you don't need to use basic techniques, and you need to use your legs more often. He doesn't have a partner to teach him that, but that's not his concern. Watching him practicing, Jin Moo couldn't help but feel frustrated. When he approached him, he asked him why he was so haphazard in his punching technique. Jin Moo started shouting that only constant training would help the guy refine his punches and learn how to confuse his opponent. But Cheon Woo didn't seem to understand his words at all. He tried to explain his thought again, but it was all in vain. Jin Moo wondered why such idiots were everywhere. Grabbing him by the ear, he brought the guy to the right place and asked him to repeat the Chilsung fist-fighting technique. He was eager to teach him as soon as possible so that he could get rid of his mistakes in battle technique. Cheon Woo couldn't understand how it was that he had started moving before Jin Moo, but he was still ahead of him. Jin Moo sternly told Cheon Woo to stop being distracted by meaningless position changes and focus solely on achieving the goal. Have him use his fist fast and sharp. He doesn't seem to be thinking straight. Only after a good beating will his body learn something. Jin Moo said that Cheon Woo needs to do more footwork, focus on moving forward, and stop constantly changing positions. The guy really pissed him off. How dumb is that? You could just kick him in the groin. A poke in the eye, if necessary. What's so hard about it? Cheon Woo asked. Aren't those two cowardly moves? Jin Moo told him to shut up. Where did he see cowards fighting? If the opponent fell down, it was over. Jin Moo noticed that despite all the mistakes, Cheon Woo didn't give up until the last and kept moving. His perseverance was evident in his actions. If he'd understood the first or even the second time, things might have gone faster. But no, it was only after the 20th attempt that the boy finally stopped making unnecessary lunges. What a stubborn and stupid boy. The boy thought that he would only hinder him on his way to becoming the head apprentice. Jin Moo told him not to show up again from tomorrow. Let someone else come instead. Jin Moo warned him that if he came back, he would kill him. The boy ran away frightened. Jinmu hopes that after all his words, the guy won't dare to come back. The mentor appeared and said that he had never seen this child before. Jinmu replied that yes, he was a bit silly and still had a lot to learn. The mentor said that they had a good time. He must be doing the right thing. Jinmu couldn't understand why the mentor looked so happy. After bowing, the guy suggested we hurry up as he still had dinner to prepare. The next day, the mentor had gone for a walk since morning. The pig-like boy from yesterday never came again. Jinmu felt relieved. It gave him a chance to focus on training without being distracted by other things. Jinmu turned around upon hearing the voice. He saw yesterday's boy, and standing next to him was a Manhwa disciple, Jinho. If it's Jinho, his status is higher than Jinwu's. His mentor being one of Mutang's top 7 masters makes his position quite significant. Jinmu realized that he had to be polite to this disciple, given his status. He asked the older man what business he had come for. At the same time, the guy thought his patience was barely enough to keep from punching this pushy kid. Jinho seemed to be very displeased. He asked what the hell the guy was doing. The guy, however, couldn't understand what he was talking about. He said that Wu hurt another child at a general training session. If just a little more, that guy would definitely not be able to continue his lineage. Looking at him, Jinmu thought that he had one, which was quite commendable. How dare he teach him such a thing in such a sacred place? Jinmu said that the man had shouted so much that his ears hurt. He said that all means are good for winning. If he's not going to say anything good, then let him go. If his balls were still in place, was it worth coming to him to talk about such nonsense? He's not even his buddy. Jinho seemed very strange to Jinmu. He's being trained by the ailing Myeongjin. He was a kind child who cared for his mentor. This ignorance and insolence make him a real bully. What could have changed him so much? He had enough yang energy. Now maybe there was too much chi accumulated, and in this state, he only taught the techniques in words without practicing them. Now, Jinho understood everything started to fall into place. If one practiced alone, one could become arrogant and one's soul would change for the worse. Jinho couldn't turn a blind eye to this. Even though he was not a disciple of the Yongyang Palace, he had no right to teach him morals. But as a senior student, he is obligated to teach Jinmu a lesson. The boy didn't think he would get this chance so soon. By defeating him, he would be able to become famous, one step closer to becoming the head disciple. If he can't use the sword, then the sheath is still there. So he came and challenged him to a fight, and Jinmu thought of a way to pull it off. Isn't this a gift from God? Jinho said he would only use basic techniques. Jinmu asked if he would be scratching his tongue for much longer. The guy decided to start first. He targeted his acupuncture point of the spiritual gate. In Mutang, this technique is called the spiritual gate of the 13 swords. But instead of smooth transitions, his movements are sharp and very fast. He decided to return the favor. But the guy can easily spot any weakness because they have the same technique. Jinho can't hurt his student, so he has to use his wrists. The essence of the technique is that by pressing on the point of the spiritual gate, you can deprive your opponent of weapons, thereby winning the fight. There are 13 techniques to achieve this. Mutang even has a rule about this technique. The spirit of the sword holder must not wish for the death of the opponent. Jinho thought so. The fact that he was aiming his sword at his eyes and groin is part of the Sapa technique. It's a vile and lowly martial art. He lost and couldn't understand how it happened. It was strange. Despite the defeat, he didn't feel upset. Jinmu was waiting for the right moment to hold the reception. To achieve this in just 1 year was amazing. The guy reminded him of his mentor when he was an apprentice, Jinmu, a perfect successor. Only Jinho thought it was time to praise the guy, when suddenly a fist flew into his face at an incredible speed. The guy didn't understand why he was hit. The fight was already over. Jinmu was happy. He knew that beating up a monk was so cool. This was exactly what he needed. He was able to let out all the anger he had accumulated because of Myeongjin. Wu stood there and looked at everything that was going on. It was brutal, and now it was obvious what kind of face Jinmu was actually hiding. Apparently, because of his solitary training and constant work on himself, No one had guessed his true abilities. Xion Wu froze and just admired Jin Mu. The guy asked why he was looking at him so intently and advised him to take Jin Ho to the treatment center at Changdong Palace. The long-awaited step towards becoming the head disciple has arrived. The rumor of Jin Ho's victory over Jin Ho spreads at the speed of light, thanks to Xion Wu's talkativeness in the hospital. And he didn't care whether the traditions of Taoism were followed or not. And in this, he was unrivaled in all of Murima. Jin Mu wondered which of the disciples in Mutang was the strongest. He decided that he would definitely master the 6 Yang energy to become even more powerful. The elders of the Jiso main palace were shocked. They couldn't believe that Jin Mu was able to defeat Jin Ho. Myung Hyun, the supreme elder of Muron, asked Myung's son to repeat the information. Jin Mu became a disciple only a year ago, changed the technique of the spiritual gate 13 swords. He defeated Jin Ho from the Cheol generation. Jin Ho is badly beaten up and still hasn't regained consciousness, so they couldn't find out the details. A disciple from a young generation dragged Jin Ho to the hospital. Everyone was shocked by what they heard. It is certainly not difficult for them to return the technique to its original state, but the fact that the student did it. This is impossible without a deep understanding of martial arts. One of the elders questioned whether they were exaggerating the capabilities of a disciple from Cheol's generation. The other elder agreed, adding that it was probably Myung Jin who had taught him the skills. An elder of Yogsung Palace, Myung Gong, said that after that incident, Myung Jin criticized the sword technique, emphasizing that one should not be concerned with appearance but with practicality. The supreme elder remembered the time when the godless Hukermungen invaded Mutang. He burned down 3 palaces and killed everyone who was there. He's been so busy lately that he hasn't visited Myung Jin once. Tomorrow morning, they will go to his place. They will listen to Jin Mu and talk to his teacher. The next day, Xion Wu appeared in front of Jin Mu's eyes and said that he had come to an agreement with the elders and would now live there. Jin Ho told him to learn a lot from the guy. Jin Mu was furious. What wasn't enough for him? Let him prepare. The guy is coming to him. The mentor appeared in the doorway and said that he was the one who gave the consent. He said that last night Jin Ho came up with a request, and the teacher hoped that Jin Mu would help the guy. Dropping to his knee, the guy admitted that he wasn't ready to train others yet. The mentor, however, said he was aware of what had happened. Taking the guy's hands, the mentor said that he shouldn't doubt himself. His victory over Jin Ho, a big step forward. He is sent to them from above, and this is a great fortune for Mutang. If a student goes beyond the limits, the teacher will only be pleased with his success. The boy reflected that none of this was supposed to be happening. He felt that it was not good. The mentor turned to Xion Wu, saying that he too should work hard. Jin Mu wondered how the two got along so quickly. Teacher told Jin Mu that he was hungry. Let him cook something. Xion Wu, addressing the guy like a brother, asked what the teacher preferred for breakfast, since he would be cooking for him from now on. Jin Mu replied that although he took it because of his mentor's order, but let him memorize a few things. First of all, he's not his teacher. Secondly, in the future, let him do only what he is told to do. And lastly, no shouting in training, it's forbidden. If he fulfills these 3 conditions, nothing will happen. Every offense will be punished. Jin Mu mused to his shoulder, asking, is he really willing to obey in everything? If he understands everything, he can go. Xion Wu asked where to. Jin Mu said he'll show you now. Xion Wu proudly announced that he had brought the chickens. Jin Mu nodded approvingly, said he had done a good job, and told him to gut the chickens. Next, let him put it in water, then let him remove the feathers and put it to cook. Jin Mu thought, what a convenient way to get someone to work in his place, a real obedient dog. Xion Wu turned to his teacher and asked how he managed to beat Jin Ho yesterday. He was very surprised, for Jin Ho's brother's fighting skills were recognized by all the mentors, and Jin Mu had him with one left. Is he really interested? Does he admire him? Let him take the chicken out, it's ready. He looks so much like Xion Wu Myung no matter how Jin Mu looks at him. Even though he's not smart and has a lot of flaws, there's still no one more loyal than him. In addition, such a kind guy, while enduring all the humiliation from his peers. Jinmu said, okay, they can go to the mentor now. On the one hand, it's good for him that things have worked out this way. He'll be able to blame it on him. Chionwu asked if everything was going to be okay. Jin asked what was he talking about. The guy replied that one of Mutang's commandments forbids eating meat. What would happen if they found out about it? In Mutang, if you are a master, you must follow certain moral standards. One of them is the absolute prohibition of food of animal origin. If one eats meat before the yang energy is engendered in the chakra, it will not accumulate and the chi energy will increase. Therefore, all disciples are strictly forbidden to eat meat. Herbs and grains are the mainstay of the ward's diet. They are very strange. Jinmu replied that it was fine. He and his mentor had been eating meat for a long time. Guy brought his mentor some chicken and told him to eat as much as he could. He would need a lot of energy to recover. The mentor said that after his advice to eat meat, he feels his strength increase. 2 months ago, he couldn't even go out. Jinmu is happy to hear that. That's great news. He'll be able to get away from that pesky Mutang just by stopping worrying about him. After breaking off a piece of chicken, the mentor offered Jinmu to eat. He refused, saying that he didn't have to worry. He would eat with Chionwu. They're big, aren't they? And they're going to split one chicken for two? We should have caught and cooked 3. Jinmu told his mentor that he would go. When he finishes eating, have him call him. But when he opened the door, he saw Chionwu eating the last of the thigh. That pig ate it all in one go. He ran after him and was ready to kill him. Doesn't he know he has to share? At least let him keep the broth. Suddenly, the Supreme Elder along with the others appeared in front of their eyes. Jinmu wondered, why did they appear so suddenly? Myung Gong began to yell at them. What kind of meat smell could be smelled from the foot of the mountain? Because of his sick mentor, he dared to break Mutang's commandments? As the head of the palace, Young-un, who is responsible for enforcing the precepts, cannot turn a blind eye to this. He will report it to his mentor, and Jinmu will not escape punishment. They headed over to the teacher's room. Seeing the pile of bones on the table, the elders asked Myung-jin in surprise what he was doing. Jinmu realized that because of this situation, he might lose the chance to become a top disciple. So all his hard work was in vain. The boy thought the best solution would be to beg for forgiveness. He said it was his fault. The mentor's energy was greatly diminished. Elder Myung Gong shouted for that rascal to shut up. Nothing would help him. His concern for his mentor may be commendable, but he broke a commandment. Is he out his mind? Jinmu thought that this thing was getting on his nerves. If it wasn't for the Supreme Elder, this circus wouldn't have happened. Once he curbed the 6 yang energy, he would smash its head. The Supreme Elder asked Myung-jin what he was doing. In the temple, he is the oldest, so he should explain everything. Mentor suddenly burst out. So why do they think it's a sin? Jinmu was of course inwardly supporting him, but he couldn't understand what was going on. The mentor looked like he had lost his mind. The man told his disciples to stand up with him. Where had he sinned by eating a little meat? Rising from his chair, their mentor asked the brothers what he looked like now. Losing all energy and left with the pain of watching his older brothers and elders die on the battlefield. Do they even understand what it's like to watch and be powerless? Their constant preoccupation with morality has led to the destruction of Mutanga and its miserable defeat. The only reason Hukermungen left was the truce made by the alliance of united political forces. But what, after that, are they left with? With nothing. Are they capable of revenge? In the past, because of a conflict, a great war broke out between them. As the master of Sepichan, he did a lot of damage to Mutang. The alliance focused on profit rather than morality, which turned out to be the right decision. At the same time, 3 sides began to fight in Murima. If the Great War continued, the Ilwan Majiu clan, surviving and increasing in strength, would be at an advantage. So the alliance, wanting to prevent such an outcome, saved Mutang by making a truce. However, after that, everyone turned their backs on Mutang. The clan was forgotten and went into decline. No one cared. That was the cruel reality. Many other clans disappeared from history forever. The mentor was surprised when Jinmu brought him meat, but he said that without it, his strength would not be restored. He also said that he didn't know how to live if his mentor died. When he heard this, he agreed, and after eating, he felt a surge of strength. Recently, Myung-jin even began to walk around the temple. The elder was surprised. Myung-jin, who was bedridden for 10 years, is now walking around? Has his condition improved so much? Even though he has broken the commandments, his condition has improved. He believes that he should get rid of the garbage and change the rest. In order to accumulate yang energy, they do not consume meat, but to gain strength, it is necessary. He's exhausted that he can't teach his students the martial arts. Because they are not allowed to kill, they could not fight back against Sepichin, and the 3 palaces that were burned have yet to be rebuilt. They don't understand. They only keep saying that Mutang is getting weaker, but if he disappears, then what good are all the commandments? Myung-gong was outraged. Myung-jin says to get rid of the commandments. Is he out his mind? He shouted that the commandments are the essence and history of Mutanga. Although he did get better, following the commandments is the basis of discipline. The men began to argue vigorously, but Myung-jin didn't suggest backing away from them. He suggested just changing them a little. He argued that there's nothing wrong with change. Why don't they find a compromise if they are not happy with something? The Supreme Elder shouted that enough of the argument. He would settle the matter. Let them talk to Myung-jin alone. Myung-gong said that this is not the way to solve the problem. The man said he would not repeat himself twice. The elders replied that if so, they would have to deviate. The guys shooed the unhealthy guests away and exhaled with relief. Cheon-woo asked, what should they do now? Jin-moo himself didn't understand what they had done. All they did was eat meat, some commandments, changes. Why is it so complicated? He thought that it couldn't be that the opportunity to become a head disciple could disappear so easily. The next day, at Jaiso Palace, Jin-moo stood in front of the elders. He tried to calm himself down, thinking that he hadn't done anything special. He had just eaten meat. The Supreme Elder spoke. He said that Jin-moo had 3 sins on his conscience. The boy didn't understand where the 3 had come from. There was only meat eating. What else could there be? Would this be the end of his dream of becoming the head disciple? And he tried so hard, going through all the difficulties. First, he encouraged his mentor to break one of the commandments. In the second, he changed his sword technique and was training a junior without authorization. Third, he violated the chain of command and traumatized a senior student very badly. Does he admit that? The boy stood there, thinking that everything possible had been attributed to him. All eyes were fixed on him, and he would have torn their eyes out. Jin-moo replied that he admits to the charges. Did those old geezers come just to hear about the harsh punishment? And if he blunders again, will he finally lose that opportunity? If he admits to all 3 acts, then let him hear the punishment. Jin-moo will have 1 month to restore the Heimunjin pond. The boy breathed a sigh of relief. The elder continued, allowing the meat to be eaten as needed. The others were shocked by what they heard. Myung-gong started shouting that the elder was too kind to the boy. He should have been imprisoned. After all, it's a violation of the meat ban. The Supreme Elder shouted that his decisions were not up for discussion. He did not allow anyone to express their opinion. He let Jin-moo go, and one of the elders asked for permission to speak. The Supreme Elder gave his consent. Elder Myung-hwa asked, did he make this decision because the meat made Myung-jin well? Had he heard any news about Myung-jin? The man replied that yes. It looked like he had already started going out for walks. He regretted not doing it himself. As Mutang's chief healer, he had observed Myung-jin for a long time and realized that he needed meat food. But I couldn't recommend her, because that would have violated the commandments. That is why he did not prescribe anything. If you think about it, nothing is more important than human life. The Supreme Elder replied that this is true, but the reason for lifting the ban on meat goes beyond that. Heimunjin Pond and Haemingak Palace. This place did not escape those who went to Mutang with the war. This place, the pride of Mutang. But it's been 10 years since he ruined everything, and nothing has changed. Isn't there anyone who can at least keep an eye on him? Cheon-woo told the guy that it was so weird. Jin-moo asked what he was talking about. He said that the training schedule was discussed this morning, and someone from the state was going to be sent to them. The guy didn't understand why no one was there. Jin Mu said that they were just jealous. All the disciples except Jin Mu are from the ancient clans of Mutang. The fact that Jin Mu does not have high status and is not related to them by blood, but is on the same level with them, greatly hurts their pride. Besides, by changing his technique, he defeated Jin Ho, and by breaking the commandment, he didn't suffer serious punishment. He remembers the elders' words that he should restore the pond in 1 month. And even the ban on meat had been lifted. He felt as if everything had been turned upside down. From the beginning, no one liked a stone that came out of nowhere. And if it turns out to be a diamond, the dislike only grows stronger. And it's all done on purpose to mess with him. He has to control himself until he becomes the head student. Xion Wu didn't understand why his brother was so angry, or did he remember the chicken? For 3 days, they enjoyed a delicious meal of pork roast, boiled chicken, and other favorites, and the work never moved. Xion Wu asked, is it really okay to do that? Doesn't the guy still trust him? In order to last and restore the pond, they need to eat. Jimu wondered why Xion Wu was so late. Did he fall asleep? Xion Wu ran towards him, apologizing. It turned out that he didn't come alone today. Xion Wu brought Xion Sang, a senior student, with him. Jimu looked at him and noticed his tall stature and imposing appearance. However, it seemed to him that Xion Sang and Xion Wu probably weren't too close. Xion Wu said that the older student had asked him a lot of things, but he still couldn't explain, so he brought him here. Jimu wondered what he was asking about. First of all, what he learned from it. However, his body does everything instinctively, so it's hard to explain it to him. Jimu eyed Xion Sang suspiciously, trying to figure out his intentions. The elders gathered over tea to discuss the current situation. Myung Song still couldn't believe that the teacher hadn't taught Jimu anything. The guy had only theoretical knowledge, but he easily found the opponent's weaknesses and changed his fighting technique to his advantage. His talent was revealed in just 1 year. Was he really heaven sent to them? It dawned on the elder, what if the talented kids didn't come to light because everyone was too focused on tradition? This time, the Supreme Elder wants to make changes, and lifting the ban on meat eating is the first step. He wants to see where this goes and see if it's possible to change the course of events if given more freedom. Xion San had already mastered the soaring cloud sword technique. Among the Xion generation, few people had managed to advance to even the intermediate level. Xion Wu claimed that innate talent is no joke. He's the most gifted among his peers. But he didn't even say hello and ignored Jinmu's question. Jinmu wanted to punch him so badly. Xion kept talking and said that he was also doing housework. The teachers paid little attention to him, but here the boy couldn't help himself any longer. He doesn't seem to have any need to talk about his roots. Xion Wu apologized, saying he didn't mean it. Jinmu noticed that his discontent explained everything. Even though he is talented, but the disdain of the masters makes him feel neglected because the low status of the family and lack of kinship with the clan is not a bad thing to despise. There are situations like this in any clan, but it was the disciples from Mutang that made him disgusted. Then an interesting thought occurred to him. If they displeased him, he could make them happy. He ordered Xion Wu to remove the stone. They have to rebuild Heimunjin Pond after all, so let him work hard. He was saying that it was just a formality and they could enjoy catching game while waiting for the punishment to be completed. Jinmu couldn't understand what kind of nonsense he was talking about. The guy claimed that he couldn't move this rock. Jinmu knew that he could do it because he didn't need any talent to do it. The main thing was to act sharply and quickly. Xion Sang had no idea what he was up to, but he was intrigued. Was it really just a show? Looking at him, Jinmu thought since he was grinning, then let him look carefully. When he approached Xion Wu, he said he would show him some tricks. Have him bend his back, toes together, knees pressed against the boulder. Now let him lift with all his might. Xion Wu clenched his teeth and began to work. He actually succeeded in lifting the stone and throwing it into the water. Xion Sang stood there and couldn't believe his eyes. Xion Wu was happy about it like a little kid. How'd he do it so easily? Looking at him, Jinmu thought that he must be terribly curious as to how he did it. He handed Xion Wu some chi as he pretended to help him with the counter. But Xion-sang definitely didn't notice it because he was staring blankly. Let him collect his drool in peace. Jin-mu decided to surprise him even more. He ordered Xion-woo to catch and bring the rabbit. After roasting the meat on the fire, they began their meal. Jin-mu offered the boy a taste. He refused, for a disciple cannot violate one of the commandments that were established by their ancestors. Jin-mu said that if he eats meat, he will increase his strength just like Xion-woo. The guy was surprised. Xion-woo doesn't have that kind of willpower. Xion-sang could have just eaten the meat, but defiantly refused. So far, only the ban on meat food has been lifted, signaling the willingness of conservative elders to change the Mutang way of life. It may be hard at first, but it will get easier over time. If the changes continue, there will be nothing left of the commandments, and alcohol and ladies will become commonplace. This will lead to a loss of morality and corruption. The elders, eaten up with anger, cuddle up to the maidens and drink alcohol, enjoying the peace. The thought stirs his blood. He hadn't known what to do after mastering the six-yang energy for a long time, but now he seemed to have found the answer. Once he becomes the head disciple, he will learn how to control the six-yang energy, and then make a good guy take the place of the supreme elder. This will be Mutang's moral decay. Moral decay has been suffered by others as well. Mutang will turn into Sapa, and the union of united forces will become Sapichan. He will fill this world with meanness and baseness as he sees fit. But he needs loyal followers to carry out his plan. Xion-sang and Xion-woo become his servants and allow him to fill their souls with evil. Jin-mu suggested that we start practicing. It seems like Xion-sang is bored. Do you want to pair up with Xion-woo? Papa Piggy immediately started whining that it can't happen because big brother Xion-sang is too strong. He's already mastered the sword technique of the floating cloud sword. The soaring cloud sword sounded something exciting to Jin-mu. With fire in his eyes, he declared to Xion-woo that he would be victorious. Xion-sang wondered. Xion-woo is the weakest of the Xion generation, and Jin-mu says he who only knows the basics is destined to defeat him. He can transfer energy to the sword. Although this doesn't surprise the first-level disciples, there are still few among them who have mastered this technique. The guy stood up and said that Xion-woo's level was hand-to-hand combat. He hadn't learned sword techniques yet. Students are only allowed to use the martial arts they have learned. If they are paired up, there will be a sword and fist duel. Knowing this, Jin-mu still offers to fight him. He's looking down on him clearly. The boy knows that very well. But if he has the ability, he'll have a patron. But is he worthy of having Jin-mu as his patron? Foolish brat. He's not even close to him. Let him surprise him because he's the only one worthy of having loyal servants. Let Xion-woo fight him. Xion-sang decided to tell them something before they started. Everyone is equal before the sword because it is blind. Jin-mu said with a laugh as he succinctly scared his opponent. If anyone heard that, they would think he was the strongest master of Mutang. But he asked what this was for and pointed his finger at the sword. Wouldn't he use a real sword? Xion-sang was angry. Using a sword in sparring, is he out of his mind? His demands are impossible. The commandments forbid the use of real weapons in sparring. Jin-mu asked, he's talking about them again. Does he have any idea how annoyed he is? Poor Xion-woo was clearly frightened by this atmosphere. Jin-mu said that everything was fine and instructed Xion-woo. The guy was indignant that it wasn't allowed and didn't understand how anyone could demand such a thing. And also told him that if he didn't do as he asked, he'd just kill him. But there's worse than death. If he blows it, he won't see meat for days. So let him think about it. He won't give him meat, not even a piece. It's unacceptable. The guy can't live without meat anymore. Xion-woo told his brother that he would do as he told him. He just needs to trust him. His attitude had clearly changed. Funny, the man just needs the right motivation. Looking at Jin-mu, Xion-sang thought that he was only a year younger than him. His name was Dodong, and now he was Myung Jin's student. He was able to change his sword technique and defeat Jin-ho, and breaking one commandment was easy. And Xion-woo lifted such a huge rock with his advice. He wondered, what kind of person was this? Even after mastering the soaring cloud sword technique, he had a bit of trouble. The boy sought support from his older brothers to cope with the difficulties, but because of his background, no one was really engaged with him. Seeing what Qion Wu had accomplished, he thought, wasn't this the one who would give him the answers to the martial arts questions that constantly plague him? That's how he got his false hope. He had come for nothing. There was no one to help him. It's time to finish, but first he's going to smash the nose of that snooty guy. When he saw Qion Wu move, he realized that it was Pakdu's step technique. The steps changed depending on the movements, and this is the technique used before changing the attack technique. He will stop him immediately. He disappeared while crouching on the ground, applying the dragon retreat technique, which allowed him to dodge the attack and then immediately retaliate. At that moment, he felt like he was fighting a warrior or even an outstanding disciple. The technique of the lazy ass lying on the ground. This technique is considered shameful and cowardly by all factions. Is he going to use it next? There's no way Qion Sang can block his attacks since one hand is occupied with the weapon. The guy was really surprised. Did he really learn all this from Jinmu? And Qion Wu is just doing what he was told to do. That great Qion Sang can't respond to anything. He is not expecting sudden action and will be confused. His movements would become more sprawling. If he used too much force in the smooth sword technique of the floating cloud sword, it would be a perfect opportunity to counterattack. Qion Wu's technique is to attack with the shoulders. Left with a broken stick, Qion San realized that he had lost. Jinmu started yelling at the guy, reproaching him for his slowness and ignorance, for he had asked to ride a wolf to create smoke, but the guy failed. Qion Sang stood there and didn't understand. He had lost. Why was Jinmu scolding Qion Wu? Jinmu continued to shout, reminding him that if he had a real sword, the guy would already be dead. If he had a real weapon, his words would be true since he's already gotten a smack on the back of his head. He's really worried about Qion Wu. Jinmu went up to the guy and said he had to apologize because Qion Wu had lost. If he had won, another student might have fallen morally. Moral decline? Qion Sang didn't really know what he meant, did he? He means that Qion Wu is dead. He is forbidden to look at the meat for 2 days. Qion Wu cried out that it was too cruel because he had tried until the very end. Jinmu said it was his own fault that he couldn't eat the game. Qion Sang thought that this student was acting like trash. Too rude, doesn't give the elders any credit, and ignores the commandments. His expectations have not been met. But maybe he's not what he seems. He's just a weirdo, and he's younger than he is. It's been half a month since they started restoring the Heimunjin pond. The wooden beams were installed, and the broken parts were fixed hastily. Qion Sang said that now we can eat. The guy caught pheasants. They're smart, so he only caught 2. The guy thought that after Qion Sang won, he wouldn't be here. But he shows up day after day. Qion Sang asked Qion Wu if he would make a fire. We need to hurry things up so Jinmu's brother won't wait long. The guy had heard that pheasant meat was very tasty, so let him be patient for a while. Jinmu didn't understand why he had become so polite. Did he act like that? Maybe he ate something wrong and got poisoned. The guy wanted to destroy their moral principles, but he realized that it was not to his liking. Jinmu could not understand what was happening to him and what went wrong. Watching them eat, Jinmu wondered if the taste of the meat had made them forget about etiquette. The meat was burnt, though. You couldn't trust them to cook. It doesn't even look edible. How can you eat it? Qion Sang thanked Jinmu because he was able to taste the meat. Now he understands why Qion Wu has reached such heights. After eating this kind of food, one can feel a surge of strength. The boy didn't understand why the flattery. After all, a few days of eating meat is not enough for results. Qion San told his brother that he talked about the weaknesses of the hovering cloud sword technique last time. No matter how many times he tries, he can't manage to figure them out. Jinmu now realized why the man was frequenting the place. The flattery became clear to him. Jinmu said he has a bad aftertaste in his mouth. He wouldn't mind some water. Qion Sang really decided to go get water. At least he's a quicker grasper. But don't encourage him too much. As if needing food must be given a little at a time so that he does not starve to death. So he will be trained gradually. The disciple of the first Yongyang Palace, Jin Hai, was carefully watching them under the orders of Elder Myungun. As it turns out, They do not hide and openly eat meat. Stepping on the same rake again, he has completely lost his way. His habits urgently need to be changed. The ban on meat has been lifted, so he can't be prosecuted, but the other students still observe it. Cheon-sang went there a lot and became interested in Jin-Moo's training. All after he lost to Cheon-woo. Jin-ho mentioned the best student of the second generation. The guy confirmed, adding that it was a serious problem. A talented kid fell into Jin-Moo's trap. If it happened to one student, others may fall under the bad influence. The elder asked if there was any other offense. Jin-hee smiled and replied that it was a strange question. Jin-moo advised Cheon-san to use the donkey technique and strike the hand that has the sword in it. This technique is shameful and cowardly. He should be punished for using it. This is a disadvantage of the hovering cloud sword technique. The arm with the sword is not protected from below and has very little mobility. Of course, first-grade students don't know this. They would sooner be taught to use other martial arts than they would realize the disadvantages of this technique. But how would he know that? He wasn't going to show the flaws in a technique until it was fully mastered, was he? How far does his insight into the martial arts extend? Myung Jin's disciple, known for his kindness and concern for his mentor, seemed understandable enough. However, his rapid development could not be overlooked. Jin-hai asked the mentor, should he summon Jin-moo to the punishment hall? Myung-gun asked, what was he thinking? Aren't the ambassadors from the Supreme Parliament arriving today? In that case, he will go to Haemunjin later. The Supreme Elder is very interested in him. Let him make sure he doesn't inconvenience him. Jin-hai felt that he was of little use to him and considered putting Jin-moo in his place. Jin-hai felt that he was of little use to him, so he thought about putting Jin-moo in his place. Even if she does nothing, no one will like him anyway. When it was discussed who would go to help him, all but the absent Jin-ho expressed their reluctance. The most important thing to him right now is the trade guild. That's why he won't go in different directions. After Hukrimigan's attack, all the power of the neighborhood fell into the hands of the Zhu family. Because of this, Mutang's finances declined. Sure, they do business with the outside world, but the proceeds were just barely enough to make ends meet. Maintaining a relationship with the guild, the only way to help Mutang. It could only be set up with the help of his family. Such circumstances greatly improved Mutang's position, which gave him great dependence in the eyes of the elders. Jin-hai is already halfway to becoming the head disciple. They're going to Haemunjin's place. He decides to deal with Jin-moo later. Cheon-woo announced that they were expecting guests today, causing them to clean like crazy since morning. Cheon-sang explained that the cleaning was necessary to welcome the guests. Jin-hai said that they would arrive for dinner. That's when it hit them, because right now is lunchtime. Looking around, they saw that the guests were almost there. He ordered the boys to clean up the mess quickly. There were people on both sides. Jin-moo only waved them away, saying that the most important thing was to remove the traces of meat food. Jin-moo was just about to tell these two to wash up, but when he turned around, he noticed that they were already on their way to greet the guests. The man asked, "They are from the trade guild, right?" He introduced himself. His name is Cheon-san, a disciple from Mutang. Brother Jin-hai told him that they would arrive at lunchtime. When they saw his grimy face, they were all frightened. Did he eat coal? On the other side, Jin-hai loudly greeted the chairman by shouting, "Welcome." The man asked, wondering if something had happened in Mutang. The guy didn't understand anything until Cheon-woo turned to him. When he looked at Jin-moo, he thought that this bastard had eaten meat again, and he was looking at him so brazenly he wanted to tear his eyes out. Jin-hai ordered the students to hand over the goods. The chairman said they shouldn't have. Are they strangers? The guy said the mountain road is not easy, but we need to keep going. It's time to move on. As he passed by, Jin-hai told Jin-moo that he would deal with him later. The chairman, though a guest, behaves like a host, and Jin-hai walks behind. This imaginary division into superior and inferior status annoys him. Jin-moo asked Cheon-woo who it was. He didn't know the details, but he had heard that they had been trading in Taken for 3 generations. When he was still Hukermungan from Sapichin, his love for money was very great. So he learned all about the leading trade guilds and their middlemen. He didn't have any information about the guild that would indicate it was new, but if it had been around for 3 generations, almost 60 years, and he hadn't heard anything about it, then it must be operating underground. And the arrogant first-grade students are trying their best to please the chairman. He realized something was wrong, something between the two of them. His intuition never failed him. Jin-mu realized that the chairman was a mean person. It was evident from his face. He wasn't someone who would seek profit in a place like this. It looked like he needed to investigate. He called the boys with him, but first ordered them to wash their faces, especially their mouths, which were covered in oil. The chairman has prepared a small gift for their invitation. He doesn't know if they will like it. Over the past 10 years, Mutang's financial situation had deteriorated greatly. As the Manhwa Palace elder in charge of running the household, it was hard for him. The man could not dress his students properly. For all the time he had to save money on clothes. He was ashamed of them. The supreme elder told the chairman that he had shown great generosity and he did not know how to express his gratitude. The man replied that it was he who should be grateful to Mutang. The chairman, pointing at Jin-hai, asked, "Wasn't he the one who arranged everything?" The elder looked at him suspiciously. Jin-hai's first-level disciple, heir to a famous family in Takana, an outstanding student. He only turned 30 this year, and he is already the pride of Matanga. There are high expectations for him. The chairman asked, if it wasn't for this guy, would he have had this opportunity to get to know the kind of people of Murima? The elder said that the credit for this went to Jin-hai, who had done an excellent job, and now they could be at ease. The supreme elder apologized to the chairman for not having thought of something for him. The man replied that there was no need for it, so he should not worry about it. It was just that he would like to look into the main temple. It would be an honor for him if allowed. The chairman of the Geum Chok-san Guild, Jin-hai, introduced them. He seems like a scoundrel you don't want to get close to. But after talking with him, the elder realized that he was a fine man. This will be a lesson to him, for you meet a man by his clothes and see him by his wits. The chairman said that if the elder was busy, he could come later. The supreme elder said what business he might have in the mountains. Let him stay a while longer. The chairman replied that he was not yet accustomed to the local atmosphere. The elder could not guess. Myung-hyun was sorry to part with Chairman Geum, so he offered to watch Mutang's disciples practice and visit the temple. The man replied that he couldn't refuse. Elder Myung-seong cried as he couldn't believe that things were getting better and he could breathe a sigh of relief. It looked like they had a chance to revive Mutang again. The supreme elder said that Jin-hai had done a good job. Myung-gong reminded the elder that they were merchants first. If they were trying to connect with the battle channels, then they needed support. The elder replied that he was right. Merchants and military could only form an alliance for one reason: defense. Merchants can be attacked by anyone, and no one can cancel the conflict with other guilds. Many people use mercenaries, but they are not always strong enough. In other words, they will ask for help from a clan that they have supported financially. Therefore, trade guilds look for clans with great power and make an alliance with them. With everyone praising Mutang in the past, the local guilds were crowding the queue. They were forced to help them because it was hard to refuse. But now, all the neighborhoods up to Taken are controlled by the Zhu family. That's why Mutang can't establish a relationship with anything. Myung-seon said they can't let this chance go. Why don't they show that Mutang is still as strong as ever? Do merchants often get a chance to see a professional martial arts performance? Even the Cheon children can surprise them. They just need to practice more. Jin-hai turned to the elders, saying that he hadn't had time to tell them yet. They had started training the disciples from Yonggyeong in advance. The shocked high elder asked what was so amazing they had come up with. Jin-hai said that the mentors started practicing with them a month ago, and they began to master the 9-yard ball technique. The 9-palace ball technique was Mutang's pride, and with Myung-gong and Jin-hai looking after him like this, he could take it easy. The supreme elder praised the boy for doing a great job. Lee Chi-sung, the chairman's right-hand man, asked the man to stop. He asked if it was too much. The chairman didn't understand what he was talking about. He presented them with various goods and a chest full of silver. For such a price, it was possible to establish a relationship with the Zhuge family. The chairman said the guy is an idiot if he thinks he can't think. A whole chest of silver, a lot of money. But they won't get any benefit from the Zhu family at all. They're known for their entrepreneurial spirit. Most likely someone in their family has heard of them. He's more than sure they wouldn't want to deal with them if they found out they were smuggling. Jin Mu was sitting on the rooftop, having heard their entire conversation. He thought it was that freak with the goatee beard who was also a smuggler. Arrogant son of a bitch. Looks like this merchant has high hopes for Mutang. At Yongyang Palace, the students demonstrated their skills to the guild chairman and his assistants. GM Joksang remarked that their synchronicity was impressive and asked if it was true that there would be a training session for the first grade students to surprise him even more. Myung-gong replied that it was just flattery on his part. Genie pondered his plan. The organized meet had already passed. Now all that was left was to show off the 9-yard ball technique to earn extra points. Next to Jin Hai, Jin Mu suddenly appeared next to Jin Mu, and the guy didn't understand why he had come. The elder explained that he had met him on the way, and Jin Mu wanted to see the 9-palace ball technique. Did the elder bring him because he wanted to watch? However, he cannot cross his mentor. Myung-gong said that everyone is already warmed up, so let him start the demonstration of the 9-palace sword technique. Calm down, the demonstration comes first. Jin Mu shouted out that he was looking forward to it. The guy was indignant. How dare he make fun of him like that? And even on his territory in Yongyang Palace? In front of him, he must not make a single mistake. He shouted for everyone to get into position to execute the 9-yard ball technique. Pride of Mutang, one of the highest sword techniques, the 9-palace sword technique. The idea is that 9 men take one fighting position and simultaneously strike the enemy. At first, it seems that everyone is moving in a different direction, but the well-honed movements, clashing and unclashing, drive the enemy into a corner. Only a leader skilled in the martial arts can hone the skills of each student so that all will act as one. Jin Mu said it was an interesting fighting stance. Myung-gong asked if it was worth looking at. The guy said yes, but the concentration is a bit frustrating. The mentor asked why. Jin Mu replied that it was hard to explain because he had just started training, so he didn't know much. But it seems to him blades clashing to attack should pin down the enemy in one fell swoop. But that's not how it looks right now. Myung-gong saw his displeasure, but what was it about? Jin Mu replied, he thinks it's because of their concentration. If he was there, he would bypass the students on the left flank and hide. It would be better if the blades moved slower, as if trapping the enemy. So much to do. Need to spend more time studying, he thought. Myung-gong couldn't believe that he had realized all of this with just a glimpse. The guy not only noticed the weakness, but also suggested how to fix it. We can conclude that he has a remarkable talent. Is this really the first time he's seen this construction? Jin Mu apologized, citing inexperience and suggesting that he was talking nonsense. Surprisingly, he revealed the full essence of the technique without realizing it. GM Joksang asked what they were talking about as he thought everything was awesome. Myung-gong apologized. How could he leave his guest out of it? The chairman said it was no big deal. He was just curious what they were talking about. The elder noted that Jin Mu had recently started to study martial arts, but was very hopeful because of his talent. Even the Supreme Elder had noted his abilities, which surprised the man. Was there another candidate for the role of head disciple? Jin Mu grinned as he noticed that the chairman began to look at him differently. The boy had long ago realized the essence of their plan. Earlier, Li Chai-sung told the chairman that if they gave money to the Chu family, they would waste it. Li Chi-sung said that Mutang is weak. The chairman said he should continue to be like that. Then other merchants won't come here. Mutang may be in danger of destruction, but its glory lives on. For 1,000 years, it has remained the main Taoist clan of Chongwon, known for its strict adherence to the canons that even a 3-year-old child knows. If it became known that Mutang was their ally and they were supporting him financially, their reputation in Jianwan would inevitably change. They're constantly being watched by the police, but if even one outstanding Matanga master helps them, then the attitude of the police towards them will become different. Li Chi-sung asked if Mutang would obey Mutang's instructions, especially if their plans became known. Is it the only thing that bothers him? In Mutang, there's an opportunity to become a head student, the one who will become the next high elder in the future. So far, no one in Mutang has taken that seat. The chairman is planning to put Jinhai there. Out of family kindness, he agreed to support Mutang and help Jinhai become the head disciple. When he took over, it will be time to pay for the favor as agreed. After all, he has no idea that they're using him to suck all the juices out of Mutang. From kindness, the merchant's profits should grow like a snowball. He was very bright as a child, but he got very dumbed down by being here. Later, when they've got their hands on everything, he'll repent to them. Jinmu watched him and wondered if he might be doubting the rightness of his investment right now. How dare he claim territory like a pathetic dog? And Jinhai is a bastard. Is he thinking of becoming the head disciple without considering him? The dual energy is necessary for him to safely use the Dark Dragon technique and regain his lost power. However, only the head apprentice can master it. Once he gains power, he can control Jinmu's essence, but he needs Mutang to do so. To achieve his goal, he intends to completely destroy their conspiracy. The chairman and apprentice of the former is Jinhai's link. To stop them, he needs to gather everything about the main trade guild. He can't leave Mutang without a good reason. He needs to find a reason. At that moment, his preceptor called him, and seeing his condition, asked him what was troubling him. Xion Wu told the teacher that he was like this after the members of the main trade guild appeared. When he saw the worldly people, he was overcome with curiosity. No wonder, for he was already 20, and if he was leaving the mountain like the older disciples, he would not think it strange. But because of the condition of the preceptor, he was bound to this place. The teacher asked, "What is the day tomorrow?" Jinmu replied that it was the 3rd day of the month. The teacher replied that he understood. The boy didn't understand why he was distracting him. He was thinking about serious things. 2 days later, at dawn, the mentor called Jinmu over. Upon entering, the boy noticed the teacher in formal attire. The elder said he wanted to visit Jaiso's palace. The boy was surprised and asked, "In such windy weather? He might get sick, and if he was blown away, all his efforts would be in vain." The mentor replied that everything was fine. He dressed warmly. Jinmu didn't understand what good could have happened. Why had he been so happy since yesterday? Every month, an elders' meeting is held in Mutanga under the leadership of the Supreme Elder. Events to be held are discussed, and the budget for the coming month is distributed. And there are conversations about training. Not only the elders come, but also the first grade students, in charge of the inner life in the palaces. Jinmu remembered that this was the first time they were attending the meeting. Myung-jin is not in charge of any palace, only leading a reclusive life in a small temple. So he hasn't come here all this time. When Jinho saw his mentor, he greeted him. He was very happy that his teacher had come. He apologized for visiting him so rarely. The mentor asked if he was making any progress. But hadn't his student taught him a lot? He had learned his lesson well. Jinmu wondered why he was laughing as if he wanted him to beat him to death. The mentor suggested that they go upstairs inside. Jinho said he would escort them. As I walked up the stairs, everyone said hello to teacher Myung-jin. Jinmu couldn't understand what was going on. Everyone greeted him with extraordinary politeness. When he saw his mentor, the Supreme Elder couldn't believe his eyes. He said that he should think about his health. He shouldn't have traveled so far. Myung-jin said that all of this was made possible by a student who put a lot of effort into making the trip comfortable. The elder realized that the meat had indeed played a part and thought that the ban should have been lifted much earlier. The guy really put in a lot of effort. Since it was cold, he suggested going inside as soon as possible. The guy didn't understand what it all meant. What was this joyous reaction? Did they announce a contest for the best greeting? Jinho asked the boy. Wasn't he proud of his mentor? He may not have known, but teacher Myung-jin is the most respected master of Mutang. Before his chakra closed, he and the Supreme Elder were disciples of the new generation of Mutang and held great promise. When Sepichan's master suddenly attacked, he fought to the last man, trying to protect his disciples. In Mutang, he has become a symbol of true fortitude, and everyone admires him without exception. To Jinmu, He was a master who had attacked him in the past, but now he was just a useless old man bringing nothing but trouble. The Supreme Elder said they would do as discussed. He asked if there was anything else on the agenda. The needy Mutangs suddenly had funds, and the meeting dragged on as there were many requests from each palace. Myung-jin suddenly raised his hand. When the meeting was almost over, he decided to jump in. The old man's nothing but trouble. The man said he was afraid their agreement with the trade guild was not the right decision. Sure, Jin-hai organized everything, but they don't know exactly what their plans are or where they came from, so careless use of funds is the wrong thing to do. He tensed up. He didn't understand what this walking corpse was up to. The mentor said to direct the students to observe them. The boys, under the pretext of helping, would keep a close eye on everything. Since a long time ago, there was a tradition of sending apprentices to the guild under a contract to showcase their talents rather than guarding them. This was an opportunity to showcase the strength of Mutang's apprentices. They would live off the guild, which would be beneficial. The elder approved of the idea, but asked the question, who among the apprentices with honed skills would take on this role? The mentor was surprised when he asked what there was to think about. Jin-mu, of course. Did Myung-jin come to the meeting just for this question? Can he really be useful? His words about him always being a problem were abolished. The guy was pleasantly surprised. Jin-ho agreed, adding that the other first-tier disciples were busy with duties in the palaces, so it was worth sending Jin-mu. Looking at him, Jin-mu wondered if he was a good guy. If he knew, he wouldn't have beaten him so badly. Myung-gong supported the decision, noting that the guy personally knew the chairman and was quite savvy. Jin-hai was clearly surprised by this turn of events. The Supreme Elder said it was a good idea. Everyone was in agreement with the Elder's opinion. His problem was solved so quickly. The Elder, after listening to the opinions, summarized and told Jin-mu to go back to Chanho Temple and prepare. The guy was very excited. One trained monk is worth 10 Sapa masters. Jin-hai, watching Jin-mu's joy, was angry. He couldn't let him destroy everything he had built for so long. Jin-hai came to Jin-kun with a complaint. Is he really going to leave it like this? Jin-hai thought that Jin-mu should think hard about his actions. He broke the commandments and went unpunished, but now he was going to be sent away. Jin-sung said that there was logic in what he said, but the final decision had already been made. Jin-hai told him not to talk nonsense. The decision of the meeting can't always be right, because everyone makes mistakes. Jin-kun shouted for Jin-hai to take back what he said. The guy replied in surprise and asked, did he say something wrong? Only a select few can become first-tier disciples. They, members of renowned families who wanted to do great things, took the path of Mutanga's enlightenment. And now they are competing to take the place of the head student who will have the responsibility for the next generation. Jin-mu is Doden, the son of a peasant who, taking advantage of his mentor's position, dares to question the elder's beliefs and violate Mutang traditions by tricking his students into eating meat. He is destroying the centuries-old foundations of the guild. Only cruel punishment will save his soul from so many sins. Jin-ho came into the room and yelled that the guy was making a big deal out of it. He asked, what is the big deal about traditions? If only they are taken care of, will there be a change for the better? That's Jin-ho, who was beaten up by Jin-mu, after which he was treated in a hospital. Anything else he wants to add? Walking up to Jin-hai, the guy told him that he was just jealous. Didn't he see Myung-jin's teacher? The one who got better thanks to meat and can walk around? And hasn't the ban been lifted already? Didn't everyone recently support Myung-jin's idea to send Jin-mu? His efforts in organizing a meeting with the main trade guild only brought more points, but that was it. Jin-ho asked Jin-kun what was his opinion. Wujin Palace is in charge of relations with guilds in other regions. The first thing he should have done was to talk to Jin-kun before telling teacher Myung-chun, right? But why did he go to the Supreme Elder and tell him? Jin-ho told the kid to pace himself, do everything in moderation. After all, a first-grade apprentice is the face of Mutang. Mutang, a place he can't use to profit and promote his family. Pulling out his sword, Jin shouted, how dare he? Jin-kun shouted for them to stop. How could they, the leaders of their palaces, behave like this? He said that no one else should dare to discuss the decisions made at the meeting. Do they understand? Jin Sung remarked that it was rude, since he knew how much Jin Hai hated discussing his family. The guy replied that he was wrong to talk about a sin that he was no longer being judged for. So he likes him? It's Jin Mu. He seems to like him. He said he did. Could it be because he has a different view of martial arts? Jin Sung said he's kind of not a woman, but stole his heart. Apparently the guy needs to pound him too. He said that Cheon Sang hasn't thought about coming back from Cheon Ho Temple lately. Everyone likes Jin Mu. The guy said that Cheon Sang has been through a lot too. He thinks it's because of the older students. Wasn't he accepted as a disciple of Chongdong Palace because he was able to cope with the bereavement of childhood to heal it here? Perhaps that's why the promising guy chose to become a follower of Jin Mu. He added that everything that happens is for the best. Jin Mu fits the role of the head disciple. Guy agreed, adding that although it's true, he's sure that Jin Kuan and Jin Hai won't leave things without consequences. He stands out among others. A talented man can always show his superiority. You just have to wait. They went out at dawn, and it was already evening. Looking at the boy, the mentor asked what was wrong with him. Jin Mu said he adored him. The guy didn't ask for anything, but he decided to come out even though he was sick. Amazing old man. The mentor asked if Jin Mu was happy to be able to go down the mountain. Let him not worry. Have a good rest and come back. But is there a law against novices having fun? Perhaps when he comes down, he will be offered meat. Should he eat it? Or alcohol? Mentor said that he himself had tasted wine when he was young, when he first came down. And what if the girls would caress him? Teacher was surprised. Jin Mu said it was just a joke. But he felt that there was a seriousness hidden in his words. When they got to the top, they saw Cheon Wu and Cheon Sang. Jin Mu asked where they were going. Cheon Wu said he was going on a trip, right? They decided to go together because they have to help their teacher. Jin Mu asked, whose disciples are we talking about? They had already received the permission of the elder. And Brother Jin Ho wished them a good journey and even gave them some money. Jin Ho dumped that stupid Cheon Wu on him. He's not crazy to take them on. The guy wanted a more deserving person as a partner, so let them get out of his sight. The boys begged the teacher to change his mind. They could really be useful. Damn, Jin Mu decided to turn all his family's efforts to ashes? 20 years ago, his grandfather Wu Junmyung decided to send him to Mutang. He said that the future of the Wu family of Takana was in his hands. It was his responsibility to make sure that the Wu family, like the Zhang clan, were recognized as warriors. The Wu family used to have control over the bandits who did dirty deeds in the back alleys of Takana. So Grandpa went to war, but he was never recognized. Until today, he had made great efforts to become Mutang's disciple. That's why the position of head disciple should go to him. After that, the position of elder Matanga. He survived all 20 years on faith alone. Jin Mu has decided to destroy this effort. He can't let him get away with it. Let him not be able to stop him. But even so, there's a silver lining. Anything can happen on the road. Among the 10 commandments of Mutang, there is one that must never be broken for anything. It's killing a comrade, but he's not the only one breaking the rules. What a stupid student. Before leaving Mutang, they need to notify the elders of all the palaces of their departure from the mountain. The palaces are dozens of kilometers apart, and he has to visit them all. At the Manhwa Palace, he was given new, hemmed clothes. Jin Ho said he was all grown up, leaving Mutang for the first time. The boy didn't understand why he was acting like they were best friends. At Yongyang, he listened for half an hour to what a novice could and could not do beyond the mountain. In Wujin, he listened about human relationships, and in Akko Palace, he was given a sword with a symbol of primordial chaos. In Kandong, he received medicine for first aid. His last visit to Jaiso's palace was to notify the supreme elder of his departure. This is the procedure a Mutang disciple must follow before leaving. The guy pondered that it would be worth simplifying this red tape, since he hadn't left yet, and he was already exhausted. So he decided to go with Cheon Wu and Cheon Sang. They're smart, so they'll be useful. The guy thought, what kind of smarts are we talking about if he only had to take them for lack of other help? It's their first time out, so have them check everything before sending it out. Also, be careful with the prices of goods, and it's best not to go to deserted places. And let him not forget, he has a big mission. You can't say he's from Mutang. The elder wished them a good journey. Jinmu was about to run out, but the elder stopped him. The man told him to remember to contact them once a day. All these formalities to leave Mutang bored him. Here, it is the stinking path of Taoism. How beautiful! He crossed the Heimunjin Pond and left Mutang. The air immediately changed perceptibly, filling his lungs with coolness. Turning to the guys, he announced that Cheon Sang was carrying the sword and Cheon Wu was carrying the stuff. This decision clearly took them by surprise. Cheon Sang reminded that it is the sword master's responsibility to carry the sword himself, because traditionally it is the most important weapon. Jinmu asked the guy, does he want to go back? Cheon Sang replied that he would keep him as the apple of his eye. To get from Mutang to the main trade guild, they need to walk 50 kilometers. Running or riding, it would take a quarter of a day. They decided to rush to the main trade guild. So, with enthusiasm, they started their first journey. He wanted to say so, of course, until something happened. It wasn't even a couple of steps before there was trouble. These scumbags demanded everything they had. No matter how the world changes, there will always be assholes. Taking money in novices is so low. Have they lost their fear? Cheon San stood in front of the teacher and asked, don't they know what Mutang's people look like? How dare they block the road right at the entrance to the mountain? They'll pay for what they did. Cheon Sang can't let them get away with it. The red-headed brat drew his daggers and dared to play with it. Does he really think he cares about Mutang being destroyed? I'd rather they give it to him nicely. The chance is slim, of course, but if they have the money, let them lay it out as well. Maybe one of them will be spared. Jinmu still can't get used to the nasty bandits. They haven't changed a bit during his absence from this mortal world. If it comes to that, then don't let them expect a pardon. The guy ordered Cheon Sang to deal with them, and they should arrive before sunset. The guy warned if they put down their guns now, no one would get hurt. After telling Cheon Sang to go to hell, the redhead attacked. But the guy dodged it. It was obvious that most of them were already exhausted. Jinmu watched their actions carefully. But not those two. Their moves aren't bad. They must be in charge. Having sent their subordinates ahead and hiding behind them, they watch and wait for an opportunity. Jinmu stood there thinking how funny it was. Cheon San had mastered the sword energy imprisonment technique and was able to advance a few steps further. He became much stronger by learning from him. Cheon Sang can handle these two if they team up. Cheon Sang has been putting up a good fight in training lately. He can't be handled by a few thugs. Suddenly, Cheon Sang's shoulder was hit. Jinmu had completely forgotten that the guy was in Murima for the first time. Unlike in training, where everything is calculated, in reality there are no definite tactics. Everything depends only on confidence and the will to survive. Those who, like Cheon Sang, had just come to Murim without proper training would find themselves confused when faced with such people. And without concentration, a person starts making a number of stupid mistakes. It follows that even a weak opponent can overpower you. Jinmu noticed that Cheon Sang didn't have time to dodge and decided to help. He said that the guy lacked experience. He massacred the bald man unarmed, crossing his arms and punching him in the back of the head. Jinmu saw these two wielding the sword and said that they were most likely the most dangerous ones here. And the level is pretty high when you compare it to their partners. What does that mean? Did someone hire them? He immediately realized that the enemy was much stronger than he had anticipated. So running away was the best option. But no one would let him go. Jinmu managed to catch him. The guy decided to have a chat with him, asked him what he was doing and who sent him, calling the guy an unfit monk. He wondered if he really thought it would be that easy. If he's a novice, he thinks he'll get off with a few questions and then escort him to jail? But who says he's going to do that? He's only used to that, enriching himself by hurting others. People die violent deaths a lot, don't they? The man shouted that it was too cruel. Jinmu reminded him that he was the one who had originally tried to kill him. But he couldn't make a mess with him, so he decided to ask the others. Jinmu told him not to move, even if he broke his neck. His companions stood with their mouths open, wondering if this novice was very different from anyone they had met before. After dealing with him, Jimu noticed that his new form was covered in blood. He asked who was next. Once in his hands, he will either maim or kill. The bandits decided to surrender and tell all. According to these idiots, they're from the Palian gang organization that runs Taken. They mostly collect money on the streets. Their bossy pal, Ryong, ordered them to ambush them at Mutang Mountain and then bring in 3 novices. These 2 men are called the 2 devils of Sabona. They thought they could grab 3 kids with ease. Just as he thought, the mercenaries knew the boys would pass through there. But why? Mutang had been weakened since Soppa's invasion, but he had been incredibly strong before. So, if someone uses a mercenary service, that means they usually pay a large sum of money. But who would spend mad money to catch the novices? Jimu asked, who hired them? It was like they didn't know much themselves. I guess he'd have to look for E-Pal Ryong himself. They told me that these 2 Sabona devils are very famous. In the back alleys of Takena, they're considered masters of their craft. They killed some famous warrior, so they were hiding there. Jimu asked how much they were being paid for them, referring to the monetary reward. The red-haired man replied that it was 10 silver each, to which the guy said that it was too little. The guy asked, did they get anything? When they heard this, they looked at each other with frightened faces, not understanding what he was asking. After handing over the money bags, they said that was all they had gotten. Jimu praised them and said they could go now. The boys stood with their mouths open in bewilderment. Would the teacher really take that money? He also added that Pao Ryong must not find out about the incident. If Jimu finds out that they prevented him from meeting him, they'll be in trouble. A guy can take it easy. They'll go down that road and live like human beings. They won't hurt anybody else. Jimu replied that it wasn't necessary. They can continue to live in the nooks and crannies. Getting money for violence and other people's pain is not a bad thing. People should live as they used to, because why change anything? The man said no, he would never do immoral acts again, even swore on his father's name, but got a coin on his head. When they saw the angry guy, they immediately ran away. Even though they were attacked by bandits, Jinmu not only beat them very severely, but also took away their money. The bandits, running away, apologized for their words as hard as they could, promising that it wouldn't happen again. A novice shouldn't do that. Jinmu told the boys that they would drag the 2 Saibong devils. They should hurry down the mountain. Takena territory, Pangshan village. At the Pangshan administration office, Jinmu said he would go talk to the chief himself and let the others rest for now. The boys breathed a sigh of relief, as they hadn't stopped for a minute the whole way. Cheon Wu asked Cheon Sang if the teacher did the right thing, because even though those were robbers, they were beaten up so badly. Cheon Sang replied that he admired his teacher. Everyone hated those thieves who were operating in the back alleys. Cheon Wu asked if they would do evil now after this incident. Didn't he see their faces when they ran away? They ran off in the opposite direction of Takena and are unlikely to return. Because of a gang of bandits, he lost his family. They killed not only his family, but also the good people of the village. If it wasn't for teacher Manhwa, who was nearby, he wouldn't have been there. He defeated them and escorted them to prison. What does Cheon Wu think happened next? And then there was the bribe they gave to the warden and freedom again, the brazen gang life. He would never forgive those bastards. Someday, he would destroy them himself. That's why he was so interested in sword technique. Warden Manhwa and Brother Jin Sung said he should suppress that desire. But teacher Jinmu is not like that. Thanks to him, Cheon Sang realized what true enlightenment is. It's when you awaken and lead others. Condemning the bandits for their way of life, he told them to rob even more, which scared the hell out of them. It sounded like if you do anything wrong, I will surely find you and punish you. No doubt that was the thought in their minds. There are such people who walk the path of suffering, bringing light to this world. Today, he made an important decision. He will listen to and follow that teacher who chose this path of suffering and torment without question. Cheon Wu said that their teacher was such a great person that he didn't even know. Meanwhile, Jinmu was explaining to the man that the children were hurt. They were injured by swords and had their clothes torn, and he's only giving some 20 silver coins? Let him at least toss 1 coin from above. He doesn't want to help the novice, and he's only asking for 11 coins. The man said their faces are disfigured. They can't even verify who they are. Is he implying that Mutanga's novice is lying? He had already been running the administration for 10 years, but this was the first time he had met such a novice. Nevertheless, he held out another coin. Jinmu asked if he knew a man named Ipao Ryong. He replied that he did, but that he was a scoundrel who keeps slipping through the cracks. The guy asked how much. The man didn't immediately understand what he meant. What is the reward for his capture? He said 20 coins. Jinmu had a smile on his face when he heard the numbers. Jinmu thought that he was really mean and cruel, but at the same time a great guy. This is a chance to get a lot of money. The man asked if Jinmu was going to catch him. The guy replied that it was quite possible. They tried to catch him too, and more than once. And Pao Ryong is very good at martial arts, and so good at hiding that all their attempts have failed. Jinmu wondered if he was really good at fighting. Some nonsense, since Takana is now ruled by the Zu family. By not fighting Sapechan, she was able to keep Takana in check, and Soppa's influence did not penetrate there. So could there be anyone out there stronger than the training level of street thugs? The guy thinks we need to find his hiding place. A gambling house, a night market, a neighborhood of drinking establishments. Constantly checking those places, they failed to capture him. Where is their professionalism? In any case, Jinmu had an excuse to talk to him, and then an opportunity to earn money. The guy was eager to meet him as soon as possible. When Jinmu approached the boys, he noticed them in tears, mumbling something to themselves. He wondered what could have happened to them. The guys had been walking for a long time with a heavy load. It was hard, they were exhausted, so they probably went crazy. Jinmu suggested that they go out for dinner. Only today, in honor of the first day of the trip, they would taste the most delicious meat. Cheon Wu's stomach rumbled at this. The Sun and Moon Inn. The owner built this in on a place surrounded by mountains. Therefore, it is like the moon floating on the sea, surrounded by greenery. Jinmu told them to eat to their heart's content. Let them eat as much as they want and order as much as they want. The boys were wildly excited about such a dinner. They were delighted with the usual condiments. Behind them, they could hear talk of eating meat and drinking alcohol, saying that Mutang had completely fallen. Jinmu decided to ignore it and concentrate on dinner. There were 2 men sitting at the table. One noticed that they were probably the same novices their master had mentioned. Apparently, the Palian faction had failed in their mission. The man ordered the other to find Pao Ryong and find out what happened. They were also closely followed by the other guys. The bodyguard found out that they were subordinates of the Wu family. Is it worth checking why they showed up in Pangchon? Calgun, the first lord of the Zu family of Takana, said that there was no need for that. The Wu family's plans are no cause for concern. They just came to check their influence in Pangchon village. There was no point in snooping. However, it had been a long time since they had any monks from Mutang. Pang Ka, who replied that after the disaster they had been pushed back by the Gu clan and had become reclusive. Is eating meat and drinking alcohol allowed in Mutanga? For it is forbidden? Nevertheless, the boys enjoyed the treat without any embarrassment. The Zu family is famous in Murima for preserving customs for several dozen generations. Although only a fraction of the families live in Taken, the Zu family name has been known locally for over 100 years. The composition of the family is diverse: warriors, scholars, freeloaders, servants. If they were all gathered together, there would be at least 1,000 of them. A blood relative of the main branch of Zu, living in Taken, the first lord of Zu Kaljium. It is impossible to describe the power he holds. Judging by their age, they probably belong to the 2nd generation. They seem to know a lot about food and drink. The bodyguard said that if the students are behaving like this, there are no elders there. This could have bad consequences for Mutang. Even when hiding in the mountains, Mutang remains a tiger, albeit a starving one. And if the predator comes out of hiding, it is for one purpose only: to find prey. Let him find out if they're tigers or puppies. The best the 2nd generation can do is energize the sword. If they can show more, let him test them, but without mutilation. The bodyguard replied that he understood and would not fight at full strength. As he approached, Parka, who asked what the Mutang novices were doing in such a place. He introduced himself as a member of the Zhu family from the Takana region. He has always had respect for Mutang, so such an encounter is fate for him. Parka, who asked permission to buy them a drink, but Jinmu refused without a second thought. The man offered a drink to the novice, but it was immediately clear that he was acting inadequately, overplaying his hand. The novice seemed familiar to the bodyguard. Either his manner of speech or his facial expressions reminded him of an experienced gang leader. He had the feeling that he was a Sapa warrior disguised in a monk's uniform. Jinmu noticed that there were too many annoying people around, who were also constantly staring at his plate, those annoying, narrow-minded jerks. However, what initially got on his nerves were the Zhu family's cattle. They are ridiculous idiots. He would suggest they walk right up and say they wanted to set up an inspection. The boy wondered whose servant he was. Calling Cheon-sang over, he informed him that these men wanted to test what they could do. He told Cheon-sang to fight like before and mutilate his opponent badly so that he couldn't get up. The guy replied that he shouldn't worry about it. This is not what Zhu Cal GM wanted at all. This novice has overplayed the situation. Will everything be all right? A simple stupid boy had humiliated his man, but now, thanks to this, the check would be much easier. There's no backing down now. His manner of speech and demeanor are reminiscent of a talentless bandit, thinking only of food and drink. An unusual novice. This guy is different from the Mutang students he knows. He can tell at a glance that he resembles a wolf cub. Now, the interest in his abilities had only increased. With his gaze, Zhu Kaljiam gave his consent to the fight. Parka, who said the guy has a pretty sharp tongue, for that matter, so he'll see if he's as good as he is at quipping. Jinmu asked what the man was doing. Cheon-sang only fights with swords, right? The guy's name is Cheon-sang. As he suspected, he's a second-grade student. For a skilled master from a Zhu family of the Takana region, fist fighting techniques would suffice. Jinmu says that he will regret it. As he looks down on Cheon-sang, he is unable to open up fully because his vanity has clouded his mind. Cheon-sang doesn't have any variety. He only uses the sword floating cloud technique. Jinmu watched what was happening and realized that this was not just a hovering cloud, but a cloud within which a thunderstorm had broken out. The man was surprised at the speed of the first attacks, but noticed the lad's inexperience. The arm with the sword is vulnerable, and the lower part of the body is left unprotected. He's sorry to miss out on such a promising student, but it's time to end the fight. Sword hand and foot defense, the main disadvantages. Everyone knows the disadvantages of this technique. However, Cheon-sang had already corrected them under his guidance. If Cheon-sang set himself up on purpose, then he's not just a student, but also a trickster. No doubt, the man thought a sword arm and an unprotected lower body were two vulnerable areas that could no longer be hidden. How annoying he is, the man thought, already anticipating the end. But no, the boy dodged with his whole body and rushed forward. Cheon-sang's target was the man's chin. Parka, who saw the guy swinging, and immediately asked him to wait. What a beautiful sound, Jinmu thought. When you break something, you have to break it all the way down. This kid's got it down to a T. Ju Kalgun shouted how he wasn't ashamed to lose to a kid. He's a useless walking misunderstanding. The force with which the scabbard flew away changed the course of the fight. The man shouted, calling the boy a petty bastard. Owned by the Zhu family, the top-rated technique resembling the wriggling tongue of a snake. This power doesn't just envelop the blade of the sword. It goes beyond it called released energy. Jinmu was angry. They had almost won after all. He had to beat him to death at the first opportunity. Jinmu thought it was time to intervene, but after noticing the powerful energy, he realized Cheon-sang hadn't given up yet. Jinmu decided to observe further. Cheon-woo, seeing the released energy, said pitifully that he had to help the guy. Parka, who chuckled, thinking that using the energy in the sword in such a situation was not the smartest decision. They have a difference in technology, like heaven and earth. It's also different densities and power. But the main thing is the difference in length. The energy released had no boundaries when attacking, and he couldn't imagine such a distance. Watching the fight between the two, Jin-Mu remained satisfied with Cheon-sang. He was doing his best to find a gap in his defense. You can't call his actions an attack, because he's not even close in terms of skill level. His gaze was full of determination. Cheon-sang wasn't a first-rank student, but he wasn't ashamed to go out with, just pay attention to his training. Jin-Mu decided to intervene in the fight. He realizes that the man is a master of his craft, so now let him play with him. Park Ka, who demanded that Jin-Mu get out of the way. How dare he interfere with the fight? Suddenly, Cheon-sang exclaimed to the teacher that he wasn't done yet and could still continue fighting. Everyone was stunned. Even Ju Kao-gun stood with his mouth open, not understanding why the guy addressed him as a teacher. So this kid is first generation? He's a first-generation Mutang apprentice. Warriors mentored by the Mutang elders themselves. The Mutanga's main force are mostly in their 30s. Ju Kao-gun couldn't understand. He was still young, but he belonged to the first generation? This is absurd. Cheon-sang felt guilty. He had disappointed the teacher with his dreams. After such a thing, it was unlikely that he would be able to continue learning from him. However, he had already decided that he would follow him. Jin-Mu said that Cheon-sang did a good job. Now, he's going to show him how to tear that bastard to shreds. Let him watch and learn. He didn't expect his teacher to personally demonstrate the fighting techniques. He had only heard about the fight between Jin-Mu and Jin-Ho from Cheon-woo, but he hadn't been there. And that fight with the bandits from Palyan and the devils from Sabona was just a beating that could in no way be considered a fight. He wondered what the teacher was using against the released energy technique. Park Ka-hu laughed, wanted to tear him to shreds. The guy is too bold for a novice. Although, because he became a first-ranked disciple at such a young age, he could afford it. But isn't he too modest? Jin-Mu grinned and called him an idiot fighting like a child. Didn't he still shit his pants from fear? The boys felt the coldness of his profanity. They did not understand why the teacher was provoking him. Jin-Mu said that it seems like he cares too much about his life. Apparently, it's going to be a lot of fun in this competition. Ju Kao-gun thinks that this is no longer a training session to determine whose skills are better, but a fight to the death. If this continues, there may be a conflict with the Mutang. Even though the Mutang have weakened, their clan is part of the Zhongwan faction. What if this leads to a war between Mutang and the Zhu family? He must stop them. Park Ka, who called Jin-Mu an arrogant, unfit monk. Let him feel the difference in their strength. This attack with released energy was not even close to the previous one. The boys loudly warned the teacher to be on guard. However, Jin-Mu understood everything perfectly and saw, let the chickens not worry. Just being strong is not enough. It is important to be able to use your abilities wisely. The sword energy surprised the man. He didn't expect Jin-Mu to be able to resist the energy released. Cheon-sang was delighted by his teacher's skill. He was able to repel the attack with the edge of his sword. Neither attacked nor defended, but only used the difference of energy in the sword and the energy released. After throwing Park Ka-hu to the floor and grabbing him by the hair, Jin-Mu said that it was time to finish. Let him throw his head back and look up. Ju Kao-gun thought Park Ka, who was a fool, and decided to jump in to help. However, things didn't go according to plan. Jin-Mu dodged so quickly that he didn't realize anything. Ju Kao-gun didn't expect the guy to react so quickly. Jin-Mu asked, "What is he doing? Isn't the man a scholar who knows nothing about martial arts?" He looked at the guy with an ominous look and asked again what the guy had just said. If you ask about the Zhu family, they are scholars known for their wisdom. But that's all wrong. Because of the large number of enemies in Murima, they're primarily a military clan. Therefore, martial arts, far from being the Zhu family's weak point. Most likely he knew that, and just for fun he wanted to piss him off. Ju Kao-gun said that he really pissed him off, so don't let him expect any favors. He'll make Jin-Mu regret his arrogant behavior. The guy said without a second thought that he could start. There was no mercy, he would pay in full. Ka-hu lost. The other bodyguards looked at him contemptuously. The situation could not be more humiliating. He decided that he should then put all his strength into the attack. Just have to grab Jin-Mu's wrist. The guy said it would be pretty exciting. He promised that he would not be indebted to him. Ju Kao-gun didn't understand why his attack of the suffering god heritage of the Zhu family didn't work. It was his foundation of localizing the power within the 5 fingers of his hand. Jinmu knew that this technique was useless for this fight, much less on the wrists. Zhu Calgun wanted to punch Jinmu once in his insolent face. The Thousand Worlds divine attack would increase his strength, which he would concentrate in his right hand. Zhu Calgun shouted that it was time to pay back what he deserved and put all his strength into this blow. The two energies fused together and created a powerful explosion. The boys couldn't understand where their teacher was. Their teacher winced. The bodyguards immediately ran up to the master and asked if he was all right. Zhu Calgun realized that he couldn't even move him. This was a real shame. Jinmu praised him, noticing that he had put his best foot forward as if he was ready to spill a sea of blood. But despite that, the guy was able to withstand his attack. Zhu Calgun asked his name, noting that if he was a first-level student, it should start with Jin. Let him introduce himself. He replied that if it was so important, let him remember his name. He is the future head of the United Political Forces Union. His name is Jinmu. The man stated that they would meet again, turned around and headed for the exit, but the guy stopped him. Are they blind? Let them see. Everything is destroyed. Not a single thing is intact. After destroying someone's house, are they just going to leave? Zhu Calgun said that Ji's family will personally reimburse the hotel. Don't let the guy stick his nose in other people's business. Jinmu asked, what about them? They were sitting quietly, enjoying their dinner, and a showdown was clearly not in their plans. And what about the reward for their bravery? What's wrong with solving a problem? He has a lot of money, right? Zhu Calgun couldn't believe it. Is he extorting money? The man didn't have the energy to continue the argument. Throwing the money to Jinmu, he told him to take it and get lost. When Jinmu took the money in his hands, he noted that it was heavy. Looking into the bag, Jinmu asked why there were only silver coins and no gold coins. Is he really so poor? Zhu Calgun said he was definitely leaving now, but the guy wouldn't let him go. Pointing at the mustachioed man, he reminded him that he had forgotten about him. Without hesitation, he replied that the one who lost was already useless. After telling their bodyguards that they were leaving, they headed for the exit. Jinmu thought he was just a brute, but he actually turned out to be a scumbag as well. It's a total lack of control. He's worse than he looks, and much worse. When he went outside, the gentleman felt sick. The bodyguards asked him what was wrong. The guy had internally traumatized him during the fight. Good thing he didn't cough up blood in front of him. Zhu Calgun thought he was just a wild wolf cub, but he turned out to be a real tiger cub who was already using his sharp claws. A man like him could only come down from Mount Mutang for one purpose: to seize the trading rights in Taken. If they fall into Mutang's hands, the Zhu family will suffer greatly. Zhu Calgun ordered Gilpyong to follow Jinmu. He wants to know where he stayed, who he met, absolutely everything. Has Mutang found the power to get what he wants? He won't let it come true. The inspection has been completed, and all bodyguards may return to the manor. The next day, at the center of Takena, Cheonwoo looked like a country boy who was in the city for the first time. On top of that, everyone was staring at them so intently because of their clothes. They were relatively new, but because of the constant skirmishes, there's almost nothing left of her, and there isn't even a spare. Because of a fateful encounter with Mutang, he has to endure all the shame. If he hadn't shaken down the Zhu family for money, it would have been much worse. I'll have to spend it on clothes. Seeing a store with things, Jinmu thought it was great, just in time to learn something about a store with fabrics. When the seller saw the boys, he was angry that they were touching his cloths with their hands. They can't afford them, the monks. Jinmu took out a bag of coins and asked, what if it was like this? The man realized what the sound was. Small coins don't sound like that. The vendor immediately became magnanimous. Jinmu asked if he had silk to mend their clothes. When it comes to silk, their shop is the best in Takena. The tailoring and customer care are top-notch. You won't find more stores like this. The guy replied that he trusted him and would place the order. The man praised the choice and asked for whom the clothes were ordered. Jinmu showed 3 fingers and said he needed for 3. The salesman cried with happiness. Today a beggar told him that a rich man was coming from the west. Next time the old man comes, he will feed him enough. Money gives power and makes others more loyal. If it is to destroy, it is to destroy to the ground. If it is to spend, it is to spend completely. This is something that a person in a high position should always remember. If a good impression is created, it is easy to get what you want. While the man was measuring Cheon Sang, Jin Mu asked if he knew Yipao Ryong. The merchant asked if he knew Yipao Ryong, to which the man replied in the affirmative. He's done a lot of things, so he wanted to meet him. He collects patronage money from this street. Maybe the merchants know something. Dare to ambush them near Mutang, and just before they climb the mountain. Jin Mu must find out who's behind this. The man said there are a lot of people looking for him. Even yesterday, people from Wu's family asked. They went to see him several times yesterday, but no one has any idea where he's hiding. He mentioned the Wu family. Were they also interested in his loot, those 20 silver coins? However, in any case, he would meet Yipao Ryong first. When the clothes are ready, have them sent to the main trade guild. The merchant wished them a good day and to accomplish their goals. At the residence of the Ju family of Takana, Ju Calgun reported about the people from Mutang. Jin Mu, a first-grade student, and 2 second-grade students were in Panshin village. Ju Mu Rin, the head of the Ju family from Takana, said, this is the first time he's heard of Jin Mu. What kind of people are they? Ju Calgun said that despite his youth, Jin Mu deserves the title of a true tiger cub. Ju Mu Rin was angry, unable to believe that the first-ranked disciple from Mutang was victorious. Pang Ka, who was sent on his orders to check on them. He was trying to find out why Mutang's disciples showed up after 10 years. The head of the Zhu family asked, so he didn't fight him personally? It was unacceptable for him to be humiliated by some disciple. Ju Calgun replied that he would take it into consideration. If the family found out about his loss, there would be trouble. The guy followed them and found out that they were going to the main trade guild. It looked like Mutang had made a deal with them. Ju Mu Rin was shocked by what he heard. He laughed. It looked like Mutang had completely lost his mind, making a deal with these smuggling scum that could hardly even be called a guild. Ju Calgun wondered if Mutang was supporting the smugglers, to which the man replied, I don't think so. The monks probably don't know about it. Other than that, did the boy notice anything significant? He replied that the novices going there looked strange. They ate meat and drank alcohol, so they had money. Ju Mu Rin said that Mutang seemed to have finally fallen. Ju Calgun said that there was something else bothering him. In Pangshan, he saw the Wu family's warriors. The guy didn't pay any attention to them, but they seemed to be watching the teens. Ju Mu Rin asked, isn't the Wu family's offspring studying in Mutang? The boy replied that yes, his name is Jin Hai. And the disciple who was sent to the main trade guild is called Jin Mu. Now he understands everything. With a blood-sucking dung fly, you can eventually kill a cow. Mutang has no idea that such a small wound will destroy him. But even so, what's the big deal? He doesn't think it would be a bad thing if the fools take over Mutang. Ju Calgun stood there and didn't understand anything he said. The man told Calgun that he would give him 20 warriors from Changhua University to follow the actions of these novices. They'd be very lucky if they killed someone in a random altercation. If the novices do anything illegal, have them seized immediately and brought to him. Ju Calgun was happy because he had gotten such a great opportunity. He would fulfill his assignment. Changhua University, the strongest warriors directly subordinate to the family. Before him, none of the heirs had ever used their service. In order to prevent Mutang from infiltrating Takana, the leader decided to make such a move. His father has high expectations for him. If Ju Calgun can do well, he can become the main heir. The seat is unoccupied, but is claimed by his brothers. The main heir of the Ju family is chosen based on one single criterion. It's the one who will make the family better off. If Mutang disgraces himself, they'll be thrown out of Takana. By doing this, he can clear the way and become the main heir. Everything he thought about came back to Jin Mu. He was desperate to repay him for everything. The man replied that he, Ju Calgun, would unconditionally follow his instructions. Ju Mu Rin replied that he relied on him a lot. The main trade guild. They have arrived, but Jiam Chok San is away on work, so they have nothing to do at all. All he has to do is pass the time by training the children. He shouted to Cheon Woo not to make any more mistakes if he didn't want to go without dinner. They got a whole mansion to themselves. It's got a backyard and a garden, but that's a lot for 3 people. Jin Moo was surprised. It looks like they are earning more than he thought. But it's good for him, because the bigger the fish, the better you can fill your pockets. GM Chok-sin came over. The man said he was happy to see them again. It hadn't even been a year. Jin Moo is well aware of his plans. He wants to put Jin Hai in the position of Supreme Elder and thus subjugate Mutang. But the man who voiced his thoughts shows weakness. He decided to secure his gratitude first, then find out about this guild, and after that will slowly suck all the juices until they go bankrupt. GM Chok-san was touched when he heard that they were going to visit them. Looking at the guy, he wondered what was wrong with his clothes. Why is it covered in blood? Jin Moo said that on the way there, they were attacked by bandits. But everything ended safely, so he doesn't have to worry about it. He was shocked who would dare to harm Mutang's novices. GM Chok-sang said he wouldn't do that. He'd put bodyguards on them to make him feel better. The boy thanked him for being so generous. He and Mutang are family now. If they need anything, they just have to say the word. And while they're there on behalf of the main trade guild, they can pay for their purchases in Takana. Jin Moo decided to ask if it was true. The man replied that yes, they were a family. If so, it was probably at Chong's fabric shop. The man asked, so did they order their clothes? He will have Li Chi-sung pay for the order. So how can monks who devote themselves to practice have money? Let them not think of such trifles. She simply tells him. GM Chok-sin asked, this was their first time in the mortal world. Maybe they wanted him to show them Takana? The guys are excited. They definitely agree if an excellent dinner is included too. He asked them to wait for him for a while. He has to run a couple errands and will be right back. Jin Moo thinks he's a weird bastard. They talk like they've known each other for 10 years. Excessive kindness. Behind gratuitous helpfulness, there are always hidden self-serving purposes. GM Chok-sin started to act faster than he thought, but there was still no way for him to escape. The representative ordered Li Chi-sung to contact the Wu family immediately. Tell him to report that the novices have arrived at the guild. Li Chi-sung asked if it was too risky. It's obvious from their clothes that it's the aftermath of the confrontation with the Wu family. But their plan has failed. If they fail again, they could go down too. Let him remember that all responsibility rests on the shoulders of W's family. They don't know about anything. They can't give it up. He was surprised when he received an offer from the Wu Jin Moo family. Since if he takes the place of the head disciple instead of Jin Hai, he will be at a disadvantage. If they're going to use Mutang's name in the future, it will be more beneficial to put Jin Hai in the head disciple's seat rather than Jin Moo. After all, it's much easier to control someone who has dirt on him. Besides, they can blackmail him with this incident, because he will be the killer of his fellow clan members. This whole situation is very favorable to them. That's why he can't get out of the game. Right now, he has to cooperate with Wu's family. She's well aware that her situation is worse than theirs, so she'll settle things quickly. But they should really hurry up with something. The chairman asked Li Chi-sung how the smuggling of gunpowder was going. He replied that it would be delivered in 5 days. Gunpowder smuggling is strictly forbidden by the administration, but it is a very lucrative business. You have to realize that there's too much money out there to even dream about. Right now, gunpowder is more important to him than any problems with the young novices. Neither the administration nor even Murim will stop him. Wu family. A message has arrived from the main trade guild. Reservations have been made at Muvola on the waterfront. The man said he had trained mercenaries who could keep their mouths shut. Wu Moon-hyum, the head of the 7 Wus, asked what he thought of those mercenaries. Wouldn't there be a situation like the devils from Sabona? This time, he's prepared more experienced and famous people. If they fail, then Gong Sa Chiok himself will take over. He is the leader of the Sachik bandit group, known throughout Takana. He is a master swordsman among all the bandits of the nooks and crannies, wielding the snow vortex technique. He also has a huge staff of subordinates, and is said to be connected to a huge Black Death group from Sapa. Wu Moon-hyum asked if Gong Sa Chok had volunteered to help them. He knew that they were looking for Pao Ryong, and he was his cousin, so he didn't stay away. The man said he didn't know how much it would cost. Wu Monghyam said it doesn't matter. He will pay as much as it takes. Once Jin Mu is killed, he will destroy Gong Sa Chak and his group, because all the crimes can be pinned on them. Everything will be built up as if the scum from Sapa destroyed Mutang's apprentice without a drop of pity. The Wu family will be the allied party seeking revenge for his death. And Jin Hai will come close to getting to the top of Mutang. Their family's future depends on him. Anyone who gets in his way must die. First-grade student Jin Mu will die by all means. He'll be gone for the sake of the Wu family's future. Meanwhile, the boys had reached the Takana waterfront. They passed by the red lanterns. GM Choksang said it was his fault. How could he have walked past this neighborhood with them? He was just used to taking shortcuts like this. Local girls tried their best to caress Cheon Wu's chubby cheeks. Cheon Sang reminded Cheon Wu that they were actually novices, but he himself was surrounded by girls. Jin Mu told them to keep their hands off them. They will have dinner with the chairman, not on this street. The chairman said it was his oversight. He shouldn't have gone with them past the red light district. He was just used to taking a shortcut by going there. There's only one place in Takana that serves excellent rice wine, but it's quite far away. So they should hurry. They've been through all the decent places, pretending to be kind, luring them into some hidden corner. He passed this block for a reason. He wanted to shake their sobriety. You're going to catch him? That seems like nonsense. He just arrived at the guild, and they already planned to get rid of him. Jin Mu decides to play along, and he's very curious to see what they're up to. He hopes he won't be disappointed. The boys finally reached Vivakwe, a restaurant called Mule. GM Chok since suggested they go inside. It's a place where there is no moon. Jin Mu realized that this place was so far away that no one would even know he was dead. Very convenient for dirty work. Once inside, they were greeted by an old man. The man asked if they were from the main trade guild. GM Chok San replied that yes, they had a special room reserved. In that case, let them come in. Jin Mu wondered if it was the owner of the restaurant. The old man was about to fall apart. He also found it strange that there wasn't a single fly around. There was a thick layer of dust everywhere. He could faintly believe that meetings with important people had been arranged there. The boys don't seem to have a clue about anything. I mean, they don't really know anything about the world. The old man said that this guy would escort them to their room. Looking at him, Jimu wondered what he was. The guy said his name was Gong Wu and let them follow him. Jin Mu paid attention to his hands. There were dried calluses. They didn't belong to someone who just greeted guests. That meant the guy knew a lot about fighting. He explained that it was a special room. When they went inside, they saw musicians and an elaborately set table. Gong Wu revealed that these girls and musicians will be serving them today. Li Chi-sung said he would be waiting for him outside and wished them a good rest. The chairman said they can sit down. Hurry up, the food's getting cold. Looking at the girls, he asked what they were chilling about. Let them quickly pour wine for the young masters. The girl began to fill his bowl. Looking at the contents, he noticed that it was cheap jewelry work. The difference in the color of his and GM Choksang's alcohol is barely noticeable. But there's still nothing the guy can do about it. We'll have to wait for the moment. Then Supervisor Lee came into the room. He said it was very urgent. It seems to him that something is wrong with the item delivered last time. GM Choksang told Jin Mu that he would have to leave to fix the problem. The guy replies that it's okay. It seems to be a serious matter. He understands. The chairman replied that he would try to get things settled as quickly as possible and join them, and they could start without him for now. A pathetic excuse to get away with it. That was so unplayed. It's a confined space with only one door leading out. There's something in the alcohol. Also, strong muscles that clothes can't hide are really nice. And those two musicians. Calluses on the inner sides of the hands are characteristic of a skilled warrior. And the blue fingertips are usually from those who use cheap poison. Jin Mu is completely convinced that they're assassins. But what's wrong with GM Choksang? Is she afraid that because of her boyfriend, Jin Hai won't become the head student? Doesn't Jin Hai look like an honest person? Maybe the bastard is the one behind all this. He was brought out of his musings by one of the girls. Jin Mu asked, is she offering a drink to a Mutang novice? If she is that stupid, then let her drink it herself. The girl replied that she couldn't. She only pours for the guests. Maybe she wants him to get her drunk, so he can find out if something's been spiked. Looks like the guys figured it out. They've been compromised. Why isn't she saying anything? Cheon-sang felt uneasiness in the air. The girl dumped the contents on the guy, but he managed to dodge. It spilled all over the girl from behind. It was real poison, and it was in the alcohol. Looks like a fun party's coming up. Jin-moo shouted to Cheon-sang that there was danger behind him. The girl pounced on him with a sharp stiletto. The girl tried to stab him in the throat, but Cheon-sang managed to grab a plate and let her eat. The girl didn't like the salad and immediately fought back with her magic shoes. She's a black belt, so some salads without sausage and soy sauce won't help him. Cheon-woo was a little confused and started calling out to the teacher for help and fear. Jin-moo shouted, "Is the guy even dumb?" He was a bit out of it. There were two girls fighting with him. Grabbing one of the girls by the arm, the guy threw her onto the table, from where jugs of booze and poison flew into the air. Jin-moo shouted at Cheon-sang to try to catch the jugs. The guys did it in sync. Once they caught them, they decided to return the favor to the musicians. Let them feed on their own poison. The musicians successfully dodged. As they tossed their instruments aside, large needles appeared in their hands. Jin-moo suggested using the broken table as a shield, sincerely hoping it would work. The table helped almost everyone except for Cheon-woo. Cheon-sang ran up to him. He was saying he couldn't feel anything. Jin-moo took out one of the needles to look at it. It looked like he had seen them earlier. He said he was just paralyzed. If you take the needles out, he'll be fine. No one's ever disappointed him like that before. Couldn't even figure out who the enemy really was. If they kill for a living, maybe they should improve their skills? The men asked, when did he figure it all out? Jin-moo replied that they overlooked too much from the beginning. He won't list everything because he's lazy. But what's more interesting is that Jeom-chok-sang is probably behind all this. Maybe he hired the Palian gangsters too? The musician said, maybe not even hope. They don't sell customer information. Then the guy said they would shut up for good. They could forget about their music career. He acted with surprising speed, attacking without warning. What kind of monk is that? The second one was disarmed and kneeled down by Cheon-sang, who immediately put his sword to his throat and warned him not to move. The boy asked the teacher what to do with him. Jin-moo didn't know either. After all, they had clearly said that they didn't share information. Looks like they've really swallowed their tongue. You should just kill them. They're useless. As soon as Cheon-sang swung his sword, the guy who had seen them off flew into the room. This is the Go-wul who stayed outside. Jin-moo feels like he's really different from everyone else. He began to shout, accusing them of cruelty, calling them vile monsters who did not spare even the girls. Then he asked if they were really monks. Jin-moo tried to explain that it was some kind of misunderstanding. They hadn't done anything, even though they were all alive. Go-wul warned that their deaths would be painful. They're inhuman beasts. Jin-moo didn't expect such a turn, for he explained to him that it wasn't their doing. With just a glance, Jin-moo could tell what kind of ability he had. His level just sucks. If Jin-moo fights him, it will be too humiliating. He can't afford such a thing. It's better if the guys get some experience. Did he tell Cheon-woo that the guy wants to fight with his fists? So let him do it. He was terrified. How should he proceed when he had virtually no experience in combat? If he does something stupid, the teacher will no doubt get angry. Even though the situation looked dire to him, disappointing the teacher was much scarier. Jin-moo looked at him with a smirk and said that he would definitely win. Come to think of it, every time he said that, he miraculously won, even if he didn't think he could win. He just never believed in himself. He always had, but the teacher had believed in him a long time ago. He'll trust him this time too. If the teacher says he can win, he can do it. Jin-moo, watching this, couldn't understand why he liked Cheon-woo's attitude so much. Go-wul was shocked. Who was this guy? Despite his physique, he was very fast. A thick layer of fat, protecting him from the blows. With each blow, he felt as if his bones were just breaking into tiny shards. Jin-moo noticed that under his guidance, Cheon-woo's fist-fighting technique, especially the sharpness of his attack and destructive power, had improved greatly. If he becomes more confident in himself, no one will disrespect him with such abilities. Watching from the sidelines, the man realized they were in trouble. If they kept going on like this, they were finished. Everyone was watching the fight closely, but no one was looking in his direction. He pulled a needle from his sleeve to lighten the mood. But it wasn't that simple. Cheon-sang followed him closely and immediately disarmed him. Goul looked away from the man. At that moment, Cheon-woo was ready to strike. The guy made a fatal mistake. He shouldn't have been distracted. Cheon-woo engaged Chil-sung's fist-fighting technique and landed a crushing blow on the blue dragon. It was excellent. Cheon-woo was able to handle his opponent with ease. He's grown a lot, and he thinks Goul is out. If everyone's been dealt with, they should go. At one point, Jimu noticed the red light rapidly approaching Cheon-woo. He shouted at him to run away from there. Cheon-woo luckily dodged it. Taking Goul in his armpit, he hurried over to his teacher. The one who attacked used an unusual weapon, namely a martial art. It was a master of Tanga's level. But there wasn't even a hint of a master of that level. Who is it? An old man came out of the darkness and said his time was wasted. He should have noticed that the guys were professionals. There are 3 stages of released energy. The first is called Hyungi. This is when a certain object is used for communication. Most masters who have mastered are in this stage. Next, Tangi. Energy is released like a bullet into the target location. Those who have achieved it are outstanding masters, most of them elders or close to that status. Even though he had reached the second stage now, he had a higher level in his previous life. Despite the fact that he is only standing, there's a fear so intense that the blood runs cold in his veins. Only a person who has attained Inga and is at the highest level can do such a thing. They'll be completely fucked if he reached Kang's state. GM Choksang is a bastard. How much did it cost him if there's a master of that level? The old man said they're professionals at what they do. For their age, they're the best in Jianwan. He had never heard of anyone like Jinmu in Mutang. The guy said enough, probably because of his old age. He has hearing problems. The old man confirmed that he was an old man. Having a high level of skill and making a contract with someone to kill them, doesn't that make him feel disgusted? With such abilities, one would be able to become a calm elder. But the old man chose the path of a pathetic mercenary. He said he did nothing of the sort. Jinmu asked, "Isn't he with them?" He replied that he didn't even know. The old man was only using them, but whether or not they were in on it was unclear. Is that nasty old man mocking him? All pissed off, Jinmu asked again, are they with him, or does he not know what this is about at all? Is it senile marasmus? Who went against him and wishes him dead? The old man used his power to find out what was bothering the boy. He was able to see all of his enemies. They were guys with evil energy, and even the Zhu family crossed over. Jinmu yelled out what he was muttering under his breath there. The man asked what the young novice had done to make so many enemies. Jinmu couldn't understand what the old man was saying. Evil energy? The Zhu family? He has a proposition for him. He wants Goul. He has to deliver him alive. If they hand over the kid, he'll pretend he didn't see them. He decided that this would be the most favorable outcome for them. Negotiating with a frustrated killer is not his style. But if there's a chance to avoid a massacre, it's worth taking it. He can't take any risks right now, since he's not alone. Jinmu asked Cheon-woo to let the guy go to the floor. Jinmu suggested we switch places. The exit is on his side, so it would be safer if they left first. The boy asked if there were any objections. The old man replied that he had no objection. Jinmu said goodbye to him, and the old man, concentrating killing energy in his palm, decided to say goodbye to them forever. Teacher shouted to Cheon-san and Cheon-woo to be careful. That old man is a bastard. The boy realized that it was too late to run. At the last moment, he managed to engage the air matter technique and redirect the energy in the other direction. The old man wondered, was this really how the air matter technique was used in Mutang? If the guy tried to resist his energy, he wouldn't survive. Therefore, Jinmu took advantage of the unique feature of this technique, the tornado-like wind. The wind and the air matter only let the energy flow through itself, filtering it. But he condensed the air currents, gathering a barrier from them, causing his energy to change course. It's obvious to him that the young man is better than those weedy old men. Unless you have reached a level of perfect understanding of martial arts and have the proper experience, You will not be able to successfully use this technique." The old man asked where did he come from. Jin Mu replied that it was the same thing he wanted to ask him. Such a strong old man should be quite famous. Ilwan Majiu, Selekian, the Union of United Political Forces, he hadn't seen it anywhere and had already dug through all his memories. The old man replied that he would not speak the name of one who was destined to die. The guys didn't notice anything. There was only an incomprehensible sound. It was an abstract attack. The old man can conceal and transform energy as he pleases. The man wondered how he was able to sense abstract energy at that age. To reach this level, he had to put so much effort into training. No matter what, he has to kill Jin Mu. The guy knew it was Kangi's freaking level. He ordered Cheon Wu and Cheon San to get out of here. When he uses his abilities, everyone will die. Even though he's reached Tanga's level, he can't handle him. He just needs to buy some time. After all, it is he, more than anyone else, who is responsible for his students. They still have so much to see. The old man realized he was trying to buy time for his juniors. The guy is good at assessing a situation and reacting quickly. He'll do whatever it takes to make it fun. The outcome is already a foregone conclusion. Won't he die at the end, even if he tries his best? Jin Mu was glad that Cheon Sang and Cheon Wu obeyed and fled. This might be his last fight. The old man is too strong, and he's just a pathetic bug, some worthless ant to him. But even among them, there are brave fellows capable of harming a man. Ants with lots of poison. The old man noticed that his released energy became higher level. But he thinks it's just a distraction. Well, let him show the old man what he's up to. Jin Mu tried to dazzle him with his flashy released energy, and afterwards, he conducted a stealthy strike. It appears that by planning a double attack, he was aiming to achieve his goal. Jin Mu's bowler seemed to be working well, but this was just the beginning. Suddenly, the old man felt blood on his forehead. He didn't realize what had happened. The guy asked, was he surprised? Before attacking with his sword, he let a thin, hair-like energy flow out. The habits of old men are always the same. After reflecting the opponent's blow, they begin to lecture. And this moment was the most ideal moment to attack. Jin Mu asked if he liked it. The old man asked what he was talking about. The guy pointed to his forehead and said it was about feeling defeated. The old man, without wasting any time, once again focused all his power on attacking against the guy. But how'd he do it? No gathering, no stretching, no preparation at all. He just went straight to the attack. Is there such a technique? The old man noticed that Jin Mu was blocking his attacks and delaying his death. What naive guy. When he hit the guy's arm with his energy, he spun like a wolf, reducing the force of the blow. He has lightning-fast reactions. The old man asked what would he say to that, and immediately attacked while he was hovering in the air. Jin Mu managed to fend off this attack with his sword as well, but was left powerless and fell into the water. The guy was extremely talented if he was able to fend off 2 attacks. But he has to kill him, so there won't be any problem. He senses that people have gathered nearby, and there are members of the Zhu family there. He's made it clear that he's following him, so there could be trouble if there are any clues left that he can use to find and capture him. We can't take any more risks. The best thing for him to do now is to cover his tracks and disappear. The young novice was lucky. The old man disappeared, and the boys pulled the teacher out of the water. They asked if he was okay. Jin Mu thought that the old man would come and kill him. He clearly had a problem with his head. But who is this bitch brat who fights well? His condition was worse than ever. He felt as if the bones of his arm were shattered, and because of the internal injuries, his chi energy was severely depleted. Jiam Choksang was a bastard. Jin Mu didn't think he would do such a thing to kill him. Even though the old man was gone, he couldn't imagine what he had in store for him. First, if they don't get out of there quickly and take care of themselves, there's no escape for them. A man came up to them and asked, are they still alive? He called the 7 Takana monsters idiots. If you look at their appearance, they were beaten to a pulp in those ruins. Even so, they didn't catch the young novices from Mutanga. Watching them, Jin Mu wondered, was there really no way to avoid a fight? The man said that because of Pao Riyang's failure, they had to pay back the money, but if they manage today, they can get more from the Wu family. The guy wondered who this idiot was, leaking so much information. Jiam Chok sang, Yi Pao Ryong, the Wu family, the old man with the Kangyu level, and that gang. He didn't understand what was going on. Did they all have the same goal? Ji Mu's mind was already going, just dealing with one thing, and then it was all over again. He's not in the best shape right now, so he's unlikely to be able to take them down. But compared to that guy's power, the crowd is nothing. Even if it's not much, he's above Hyungi's level. But even that is considered the highest level of the first rank. He didn't understand. Was Takana a honey place? Is that why so many scoundrels hang out there? Ji Mu ordered Cheon Sang not to interfere. And he may not hold him. The guy can stand up on his own. If he survives, he'll tear Jiam Chok Sang to pieces. He can't miss that. Can't he see that the guy's in a bad mood? Would he stop being nice and just take off? He's going to have to bluff and provoke in any way he can and blow a hole in the defense. The man wondered if he had lost his mind. Only a madman would address Gong Sa Chok of Takana like that. Jin Mu said that he doesn't care about Gong Sa Chok and Gong Sa's organization, so let them leave immediately. That a good deal, isn't it? The man asked, doesn't he know his name? He's Gong Sa Chok. Are there those who don't know him? Let him try to remember. Jin Mu asked, why would he know a scum like him? The guy said forget it, just let them attack. Do they really think some back alley trash can handle him? Gong Sa Chok laughed. Had everyone seen someone so fucked up? Did you hear what that guy said? He's about to burst out laughing. Jin Mu decided to attack first, and the only thing he could do was to hook the edge of his sword around his neck. The man asked, how dare he attack without warning? Is that what monks do? Jin Mu realized that he had hit too weakly. He was going to tear his entire throat out. Just one lunge, and he's already turning inside out, and his head is spinning. Cheon Sang and Cheon Wu wanted to help, but the teacher wouldn't let them. If it wasn't for the injury, that bastard wouldn't have been able to help him. Gong Sa Chok said that for a novice, he was disrespectful to the elders. He is so young and has no manners at all. Although Jin Mu didn't expect it to be easy, he didn't expect his attack to have so much power. The guy's in a desperate situation. If things continue like this, he won't be able to take it much longer, so we have to think of something. What should he do to get out of all this? Suddenly, he remembered the old man's words. A guy with evil energy. Even the Zhu family had crossed over. What did the novice do to make so many enemies? He seemed to be referring to Gong Sa Chok and his gang when he mentioned evil energy. Wasn't the old man talking about the Zhu family? A person with that kind of power wouldn't lie. He speculated that he might have been released thanks to the Zhu family. Although Zhongwen masters build relationships out of profit, it is unlikely that the Zhu family would cooperate with the bandits. One glance was enough to notice another uninvited guest. Jin Mu realized that he had found a way out. Gong Sa Chok was filled with rage. Moloi really wants to die? It seems like he's already playing around. Jin Mu asked, does he still not understand? If able to look beyond his nose, let him look around. The man was surprised that he had put his sword away and was so relaxed. The boy pointed a finger behind him. Gong Sa Chok noticed the Zhu family surrounded by Yung Wa's warriors. Fear gripped him. What could they be looking for here? Jin Mu waved at them and shouted that they were too slow. He almost died because of them. Gong Sa Chok was surprised. Did they know each other? Are they on friendly terms? Did these novices go to the Zhu family for help? Mutang and the Zhu family were in constant conflict over profit rights in the region, so they were unlikely to help each other. Most likely they decided to make a political alliance as representatives of Champa. Maybe they did it to deal with Sapa. He realized that these guys were deadly and didn't understand what he should do. If he challenged Young Master and Yung Wa's warriors, he wouldn't be able to pick a bone. And if he leaves the novices alive, he will have to hide from Mutang for the rest of his life when word of the attack reaches the elders. He couldn't decide what to choose, and Jin Mu only smirked. He was clearly uneasy about what was happening. There's no way the Zhu family will help. That first meeting in Pangshan was a great affront to their dignity. They're vindictive, so Jin Mu doesn't think that incident is forgotten. They probably want a rematch. But how would Gong Sa Chok know about that? So the guy decided it was time to make a break for it. Well, he decided it was time to leave. He told Cheon Sang and Cheon Wu to hurry up. He yelled to the Zhu family to deal with everything, since they were relying on them, and just ran away. Ju Gun didn't realize who they were supposed to deal with. The guy didn't seem to know that they had just come to observe. His father told him to just keep an eye on them. If they were seen doing anything illegal, he would have to report it to the administration. In fact, he came because he heard they were going to have dinner with Jiam Chok Sang. But his brother Gong Sa Chok is here instead. He is a worthy master that even the Ju family has heard of. This bandit is a Hyungi level master and is fluent in various fighting techniques. He's affiliated with the Black Death of Sapa, and the fact that the novices are with him now proves that they're up to something illegal. Ju Gun stood there and smiled. These scoundrels would definitely do something, and then he would become the main heir. The warrior reported that the novices and Gong Sa Chok had clashed with each other. Ju Gun asked, was there a disagreement in doing something illegal? If you think of his character, quite, but then the man added that Gong Sa Chok was chasing the novices. Ju Gun was surprised. The warrior thinks that the novices might have been losing, so they pretended to be on close terms with them and ran away. They must be pretty far away by now. It's likely that they've learned that he and Gong Sa Chok aren't on the same side. He asked the master, what should they do? Ju Gun didn't understand how this was possible. They were taking advantage of him to escape. The guys reached the center of town and went into the first nearby hotel. Jin Mu's strength was at its limit, but he was still on his knees, while Cheon Woo just felt like a sack of shit. Offering the teacher some water, Cheon Sang asked why they came to the city center. Wasn't it better to go to the mountains? Jin Mu replied that, as they say, it's darkest under the lamp. They would try to find them, but it would hardly occur to them that they had escaped to the center of Takana. And they will also hang around in secluded places or on the road leading to Mutang. Gong Sa Chok, Jiam Chok Sang, they're all bastards and the Wu family is involved? Assholes he'd never heard of daring to infringe on his life? Jin Mu will never forgive them. Turning to the boys, he asked if they had taken Yosandan. The boys replied that they had. Then let them get it. It's a restorative pill, one of the medicines they were given when they left Mutang. The guy said they only had 10 grand. However, he didn't care if it was 10 grand or 100 grand. He must recover as quickly as possible and defeat Gong Sa Chok. The Zhu family had already retreated, so he began to look for them. Jin Mu is well aware of the thoughts of those who belong to Sapa. He will only search for them for one day. If they don't find them, they will just run away. Jin Mu's chi energy is low due to his injuries, so he needs to solve this problem as soon as possible. A day wouldn't be enough time to fully recover, but there was always a way out. A method of crazy energy circulation. Its essence is that everything inside as if explodes, and then the process of strengthening the body begins. He doesn't care what kind of energy, negative or positive, he gets after using all of his remaining chi. This method can cause serious complications. But he didn't care about that. Let the bastards who dared to make an attempt on his life get ready. He would make sure they would never see the world again. The residents of the Ju family of Takana. Ju Mu Rik yelled at Ju Gun, calling him a fool because instead of destroying the novices, he saved them. Let him answer. Is that why Young Hwa's wars were given to him? He's worthless, he's just a jerk. His father told him that such a stupid child couldn't be his son and told him to disappear. Ju Gun begged for another chance. He said he's going to find those bastards. He'll find them and wait for Gun Sa Chok to kill them. Pounding his fist on the table, father said he was really stupid. Does he really think Gun Sa Chok will kill them? He wants to say he's going to help the bandit take down the disciples of Mutang. Who pulled his tongue? He must have said something he didn't mean. What should he do? He apologized to his father and said he didn't mean what he said. Giving him a tally, his father shouted that he was told to shut up. Calling Mo Day Ju, he asked him to take the boy to his chambers and let him clean himself up. Ju Gun asked his father to listen, but his father wouldn't listen. He said that until he gave an order, he should think about his actions. If he takes one step outside the chambers, his legs will be broken. If all is clear, let him be out of his sight. Is his father really cruel? But he's already failed twice. The first time he was humiliated, and the second time he was just used. What the hell is going on with him? Because of this, he lost his father's trust, which he had worked so hard to gain. It was all because of Jin Mu. He decided for himself that he would never forgive him. Suddenly a question sounded behind his back. The man asked, had his father counted him out again? This was the voice that Ju Kalgun least wanted to hear at the moment. It was Ju Kalgak, the eldest lord of the Ju family of Takana. Bowing, he greeted his elder brother. Let him keep his soulless greeting to himself. Did he really plan to take the fish out of the pond without difficulty? Despicable people always try to take the easy way out. Maybe he'll leave his family and join the Taoists. He'll be welcomed when they find out he saved Mutang's apprentice. I guess half-brothers are always in this relationship when they want to kill each other. He wondered how much longer his brother would be able to make himself important. Someday he would sweep him out of the way and become the first heir. Meanwhile, in Takananite Bazaar, in the Wigwam Nook, Gong Sa-chok's estate, the man shouted that still no one had made contact. Is the road to Mutang so vast that there is still no word? The warrior apologized and said they were scouring everything, but they couldn't find him yet. Gong Sa-chok grabbed him and said that the order was to catch every single one of them. Is it so hard to find 3 beaten children? Pickpockets, vagrants, bandits, and others do his bidding. They have enlisted all their own. Gong Sa-chok got angry at the guy and threw him into the hot vessel. How cleverly he'd been tricked. After Mutang's disciples left, he thought he'd have to fight young Wa's warriors. But they just turned around and walked away. They had obviously not come to help the novices. That creep just played him. He must find those children as soon as possible. If they tell the elders that their lives have been violated, then the monks from Mutanga will mob them. There's no way they'll be indifferent in this situation. If they become a target, nothing will help them. He may be connected to the Black Death, but he doesn't think they'll help him in this situation. It would be more profitable for them to hand him over to Mutang than to confront him. Those bastards don't care how much money he wasted on them. We need to find these novices and kill them. The man told Kwang Ki to go to the Wu family and tell them that the novices had escaped and ask for their help in finding them. But would the family help them? Gong Sa-chok replied that they had no choice. If they were affected, they would be jeopardized. If they don't get support from them, what will they do? The more they look for, the better. Besides, the Wu family's warriors are excellent fighters. They will be very useful. Kwang Ki told the guards to open the gate, but it suddenly swung open on the other side with tremendous force. Jin Mu and his gang scattered all the guards. The guy said it wasn't hard to find them. The guy asked Gong Sa-chok. He wanted to see him, right? So why wait? Let him come over and have fun. Why are their faces like they've seen a ghost? Their already ugly faces have gotten even worse. You weren't expecting? They thought the boys would run off to Mutang with their tails between their legs, but they're standing right there in front of them right now. Gong Sa-chok told them they were fearless jerks. He is immensely grateful that they came to him on their own. Jin Mu once again ordered Cheon Sang, Cheon Wu, not to interfere. The lower abdomen is a terrible mess of energy. He never managed to heal completely. She had only recovered in the upper body. But now he is using the method of crazy energy circulation. Therefore, the strength is higher than usual. It makes him go all the way to his soul. Jin Mu quickly killed a bunch of bandits. Gong Sa-chok was terrified. How could the wave of released energy be so long? This bastard's not beneath him, maybe even a lot more powerful. He decided to escape first and then join forces with the Wu family afterward. However, Jin Mu couldn't afford to let him escape. He had come for his death, after all. Gong Sa-chok was angry. Why did the head of the Wu family order him to kill this guy? If he's a tangy master, he can't be defeated with a direct attack, or even escape. However, if he gets close, he can use the King of Needles. Not a good chance. A murder weapon in the form of a tube, with gunpowder poured inside and filled with needles on top. If you pull the fuse, hundreds of needles will fly out at once. There's no way to dodge an attack like that from a distance. He needed to get attention. He got down on his knees and apologized. Said he'd committed a sin that could only be atoned for by death. He's a fool blinded by money. Fellow Mutanga monks, they are lunatics who believe they can channel the vicious through discipline and persuasion. If he begs for mercy with all his might, he will quickly let his guard down. Gong Sa-chok waited until he came closer and shot ruthlessly. Jin Mu dodged and grabbed him by the hair. The guy can see the tricks of bastards like him perfectly well. The man tried to say something. Jin Mu told him to shut up. He'd better grit his teeth. Now he'll have a lump on his head. Gong Sa-chak was passed out, so Cheon Wu poured a bucket of water on his head to wake him up. Now, he's going to ask him some questions. Let him answer the truth. Maybe just nod his head, or he can't understand him. The person who made the contract, is that Jiam Chok Sang? He shook his head negatively. Then it's the Wu family? The man nodded positively, although it was very difficult for him to do so. The guy isn't very knowledgeable, but by the looks of it pretty good wars, so why are they so eager to kill him if they don't really know each other? Jimu would like to deal with it now, but he can't. The effect of the crazy energy circulation is ending. If so, he will defeat the main trade guild. Cheon Sang asked, has his body already recovered? The guild has a lot of warriors if they attack now. The Jinmu asked, who told him that they would strike the guild. It would be their Gong Sa-chak. After looking at Gong Sa-chak, the guy invited him to chat privately. A man ran up to Li Chi-sung to report the situation. They are facing a serious problem. They were attacked by Sa-chak's gang. Their men shouted that they would punish the villains of the main trade guild. Li Chi-sung couldn't understand how it could even come to this. It was his brother. The bald warrior reported that they had turned the place upside down and pulled out everyone who was there. Jinmu replied that they did a great job. They cleaned up so quickly. It seems like Gong Sa-chak has a good choice of subordinates. Li Chi-sung realized that he had allied himself with Mutang. Although associating with Sapa was a betrayal, how could he humiliate himself in front of someone he was commanded to eliminate? Jinmu asked, where is his master Jiam Chok San? Why are there so few warriors? Did the guild shrink so much in one day? Li Cho-sung replied that it was none of his business. If he's a monk, shouldn't he interfere in worldly affairs? For such audacity, Gong Sa-chak decided to tweak his insides. How dare he talk to Master Jinmu like that? What happened to the great Gong Sa-chak? He was serious and was going to prove his loyalty to the monk by killing him. A day ago, he was trying to kill this novice. Now he's betraying his entire family. At dawn, Mr. Jinmu told him if he helped even once, he would not send a message to Mutang that he had attempted on the lives of the disciples. If he does the job, he can continue to live as a Nook bandit. He already thought he would become an outcast, forever haunted by Mutang. But how could he otherwise pay for such kindness? Jinmu says that's enough. He'll ask again, where's Jock's son? Let him not be an idiot and answer quickly. Let him know he can easily be killed by questioning someone else. He doesn't care who it is. Perhaps a few of the people behind him know where Jiam Chok San is, right? Li Cho-sung thought he should try to survive first. He replied that the chairman was smuggling right now. It's a dangerous business, so he took all the warriors with him. So there are few guards left in the guild. So that means if we hurry up and raid the place where the deal's being made, he can get his hands on the money and the contraband. Jinmu thought it was great. He would take care of everything. He decided to ask if it was an arrangement with the people from Goyang. But why did the chairman go personally and not send one of his subordinates? What is the deal about? There was no way Li Chi-sung wanted to answer that question. Jinmu again called on Gong Sa-chak services. Fear of losing his life took hold of him, and he confessed. The product of today's transaction was gunpowder. Everyone was shocked by what they heard. People during the New Year or Spring Festival, when it gets dark, use it for fireworks. But for the royal palace, it's a major charge. That is, military material. It is forbidden to trade it, even in small quantities, without the knowledge of the administration. And besides, if one is a representative of Murim, it is absolutely forbidden to touch gunpowder. The king's decree on the relationship between the Murim and the administration. The Murim do not participate in the affairs of the administration and vice versa. This decree was issued in gratitude to Murim by the first king of the current dynasty, and it has already become a tradition for generations to come. Murim must abide by the rules so as not to break tradition. It is forbidden to harm the common people. It is forbidden to join the conspiracy. It is strictly forbidden to touch gunpowder, for it is the responsibility of the administration. If these rules are violated, Murim can be destroyed by millions of soldiers. Isn't that what the small and medium guilds in the region are selling? That asshole GM Chok Sang has gone crazy. Shion Sang thinks that if they're dealing with gunpowder, they should report it to the administration. He thought of not only taking revenge, but also taking everything for himself. But in such a situation, he is forced to give up everything. The fellow asked where the transaction was being done. He replied that it was in a cane field near the northern reservoir. Jin Mu ordered Chok San to quickly run to the Takena administration and report the gunpowder smuggling, and he went to the reservoir. Chok San asked if it would be better to go to the administration together. He shouted that there was no time. If they finished early, they wouldn't be able to nail the smugglers. Shion Sang took the teacher by the shoulder and said that this was not the way to do it. He got hurt a lot protecting them, and knowing how dangerous it is, he can't send him alone. Jin Mu said that he should trust his teacher. The boy will go forward and try to hold them off, and he should quickly bring the soldiers from the administration. A teacher fulfills his moral duty without even sparing his own life. This is the true path of a Taoist that he follows. Shion Sang realized that he had to hurry. He wouldn't let the teacher fight alone for long. By all means, Jin Mu should be there before the administration. Of course, he won't be able to take the gunpowder, but he'll grab the moral hazard fee. North Takena Reservoir. Reed Field. GM Chok Sin stopped his troop. The man asked if they had been warned to avoid suspicious activities. They replied that of course they were. GM Chok Sin looked around and said that the customers had not yet arrived. He was told that the appointed time was still an hour away. Smuggling gunpowder was the deal of a lifetime. 5 crates of gunpowder. It took 3 months to get that much. He had to forego all other mandated purchases. In addition, it is 4 times more expensive than it should be under such circumstances. But it doesn't matter because it still pays for itself. Even if he overpays for it, he can sell it for 11 times its value. He plans to invest the profits in buying retail shops in downtown Takena. He will stop smuggling and finally create a real guild. As they looked in the distance, they saw that the shoppers were sending them a signal that they had arrived. The man told everyone to be on their guard. The first thing the buyers asked was to be shown goods. GM Chok Sin ordered the ropes to be cut. The man demanded to see the money. The chest contained 40 kilograms of pure gold. GM Chok Sin had just opened his mouth to announce the completion of the transaction when a shout was heard, ordering everyone to freeze in place. Jin Mu asked to weed out the man. He left him in a deadly place. Did his household improve from that? The man didn't understand how someone who should have been dead a long time ago ended up there. And what was Gong Sa Chok doing next to him? Had they really joined forces? GM Chok Sin comforted himself with the fact that he had 20 guild warriors with him right now. That was enough to kill 3 of them. His brother is a traitor. Isn't it better for them to pretend they didn't see anything? They've pushed his elite warriors so far back. If it keeps going like this, he's going to have everything fall apart. All the plans GM Chok Sin has made so far will fall like a house of cards. Of course, the relationship with Mutang will be severed, and the main trade guild itself will cease to exist. He decided it was best then to take the money alone and run away. But the buyers stopped him and told him the deal was off. The gold would be seized. GM Chok Sang suggested that they join forces and kill those scoundrels. Afterward, they would take the gunpowder and he would take the gold. The man replied that it was too suspicious. He believes they intervened on purpose in the middle of the deal. In fact, they're in cahoots and just pretend to be enemies, while they plan to stab the buyers in the back. They don't risk lives if they're not sure what's going on, so he can walk away. GM Chok Sin thought to himself, they're so suspicious. Did he really lose everything? Jin Mu made it clear that only he had the right to touch GM Chok Sang. The man thought the novice was saving him. Maybe he's more generous than he seems at first glance. But his dreams were immediately crushed by one fist of a guy. Jin Mu rushed over there like a madman for money. It's all his now. If they don't want to die, let them pick up their feet and get out of his sight. When they ask nicely, you say thank you and walk away. But if they want to fight him anyway, that's fine. The administration soldiers finally showed up, which is not good for Jin Mu. He didn't have time to hide the gold. Why did Shion Sang bring them so quickly? Because if the soldiers find the gold, they will just confiscate it. He had no choice but to hand the chest to Cheon-woo and tell him to run without looking back. It certainly wasn't very safe, but he had no other option, would have to rely on him. Seeing that Chak Sim was about to run away, he told him to stand still. They weren't done yet. How could such a despicable smuggler dare to infringe on his life? Are you ready to be punished for your actions? Jin-moo painted his face as the administration reached them. The soldier reported to the commander that they had dealt with everyone. Both the smugglers and Gong Sa-chok's bandits had been detained. The man remembered their arrangement with Jin-moo. They had agreed that if he helped with the main trade guild, he won't talk about the attacks on his life. Because of that, he didn't resist. Jin-moo asked what was the reward for Gong Sa-chok. The man said he couldn't prepare in advance, but 100 silver coins would be for him. Let him take a confirmation that he is entitled to the payment. He can come to the main office later and get the money. Thanks to Jin-moo, they arrested Sa-chok's group en masse and further managed to catch the gunpowder smugglers. The guy understood that there was no reason to be kind to those who preyed on you. He also asked if there was still a reward for catching the smugglers. The man replied that as soon as he was in the main office, he would report to his supervisor. Chak-san, who was suspected, is captured and the property of the main trade guild will be confiscated. It's huge, so the man said they'd probably give Jin-moo an award. If I'd known, I would have grabbed something when I attacked him. His neck's a little stiff. Jin-moo told the commander that he would look forward to being rewarded for his services. That's how it ended. The criminals and the bad guys were arrested, and there was only one thing left to do. The boys knocked on the closest local bank to stash their gold. An angry uncle opened the door for them, but there was no swearing. Why are they breaking in so early? They're flying in at full speed. They need privacy, so we can't delay. The boys sat down at the table and asked the old man for 3 cups of green tea. Looking at them, the man realized from their clothes that they were monks from Mutang. He asked, do they even know what this place is? This isn't some tea house to them. This is a banking firm that people trust with their funds. Let them get out. Jin-moo asked Cheon-woo to provide the old man with their savings. Let him put the chest on the table. Seeing the large amount of gold, the old man almost broke his jaw. That's almost how much they get from the proceeds of a year's work of their bank. The old man decided to introduce himself. His name is Dongrim. He is the branch manager of Takana. That day, the Takana branch opened for the first time in the early morning, and the 3 of them became the first monks to use the bank services in Mutang's history. He opened accounts for Cheon-woo and Cheon-sang, and that fact should make them keep their mouths shut. Looking out the window, Jin-moo noticed that it was already dawning. So far, this was the most pleasant morning in recent days. Woo Moon-hyum was told that last night Gong Sa-chok's gang and all the members of the main trade guild were escorted by a convoy to the main prefectural office. The man said that the guild was smuggling. He doesn't know how it happened, but while they were trying to make a deal, everyone was captured on the spot. 2 days ago, Jin-moo and his company were supposed to be trapped. So what even happened? The man replied that he had no such information. Woo Moon-hyum realized he was in big trouble. If those bastards reveal his family's involvement, then everyone will know that Jin-hai attempted to kill his comrade. If that happens, he will of course be banished. He would be made a cripple by cutting his tendons. He couldn't let that happen. Moon-hyum should meet with the head of the prefecture and have the man contact Jin-hai and tell him to keep an eye out for any changes in Mutang, in order to destroy everything that connected them to Gong Sa-chok and the guild. It would be safe to say that the guy didn't know anything, as if the family had secretly planned it from him. In that case, he should kill Chak-sang and Gong Sa-chok before they can say anything. Takana Prefectural Headquarters. The chief said that they had checked all the people who had been captured in the night, and Ipao Ryong was among them. They were a little short of 200 coins for catching both of them, but he added some after thinking of their expended effort. Jin-moo was happy that even among the administration staff, there were good people. The man said, regarding the smuggler's fee, it would be necessary to meet the leader in person to receive it. Have him come this way. The guy couldn't be happier because it couldn't get any better. This is the best day in this body. Before they got there, they stopped by a fabric shop for new clothes, and the shopkeeper showered them with compliments. This was the moment when he would finally be rewarded for his righteous life, albeit not so long. The administrator looked to the side and saw Mr. Wu. Jin Mu was wary because the head of the Wu family is the bastard who ordered Gong Sa-chok to order him. He's the culprit behind everything that happened. 3 Mutang novices who went down at Takana. So this was the first-generation disciple. Jin Mu, with his companions. Why do they meet here? The man decided to pretend he didn't know them. After greeting the supervisor, he asked who they were. Hadn't he heard the news yet? About how Mutang's novices helped arrest the madmen of the main trade guild when they tried to sell contraband gunpowder. Moon Hyum made a surprised face, so, as not to get burned, he asked questions about what happened there. The chief added that local traders praise Mutang because his novices helped arrest a band of robbers. Jin Mu had his doubts before, but now he's sure that he's never seen the head of the Wu family. He didn't understand where such hatred that created the desire to kill him came from. Suddenly the chief asked, "Is his son also a disciple of Mutang?" Jin Mu asked, "What was the man's name at the temple?" The man hesitated abruptly and said he had to go. "I need to meet with the supervisor on a very important matter." Before he could even finish, the supervisor said his name was Jin Hai. He remembered that Moon Hyum had said he was now called that, and now he should take the place of a senior apprentice. Then he realized he was in trouble. Jin Mu quickly reacted and asked if he was Jin Hai's older brother's father. Apologizing for his rudeness, he introduced himself, saying that his name was Jin Mu, Mutang's disciple. If he's to the manager, he'll keep him company. The guy has business with him too. Looking at Jin Mu, Moon Hyum wondered, did he really not know anything? He couldn't believe it, and he couldn't tell if the guy was lying or not. They went in to see the supervisor. The man told Jin Mu that he did a good job. Mutang has no equal. Moon Hyum came to see if his family's names were mentioned in the interrogation. But in such an environment, how would he ask that? But suddenly the leader remembered that Gong Sa-chok had revealed that he had received orders to kill novice Jin Mu from the head of the Wu family. The guy smiled furtively and replied that he had heard about it too. The man thought that he was definitely finished now. But then Jin Mu continued. He was sure it was a lie. His comrade, a member of Wu's family, and this can't happen. Scoundrels are willing to use any vicious means. Moon Hyum was surprised. He didn't understand why Jin Mu was suddenly taking his side. The leader continued. Jiam Chok Sen also said that he was using him for profit, and he demanded that the money be taken away from novice Jin Mu. The monks of Mutang are a shining example of selflessness. All he'd done was get hooked. He was sorry that he had to pass on the fact that he had ruined the guy's mood. Jin Mu replied that he was glad that everything had been cleared up. The head of the prefecture wanted to express his gratitude to Mutang. As a token of his gratitude, he's offering to let them live in the main office. How does that sound? Jin Mu replied that he shouldn't. He only helped for the sake of public welfare. He doesn't want to inconvenience the administration. And the unexpected meeting with his comrade's father was just right for him. Wouldn't it be rude for him to stay with Mr. Wu? Now the guy realized that Jin Hai and the Wu family were damn bastards. In order to become the head student, the eldest got his family to get rid of him. They almost succeeded, didn't they? He wanted to kill him right here, right now. But death is too light a punishment, and dead is no good. He already knew their weaknesses, so they would have no choice but to obey his orders. If Wu's family was used, they could bring him great help in becoming a top disciple. Let them be ready. He will squeeze all the juices out of them. The man sat there wondering what he should do. Those bastards had blabbed everything, and now there was no need to kill them to shut their mouths. And that's his expression. It was the face of a man who had known everything for a long time. He was sure he had a purpose in mind. Suddenly, guards entered the room. They said that the man had unceremoniously barged in. Moon Hyum clearly didn't expect to see him. Jin Mu said he had something to say. Could he order his guards to disperse? The man offered him a cup of tea. He hadn't expected to see him here so soon. Jin Mu started the conversation by saying that he had Gong Sa-chok's account book. If it is suddenly seen by the administration or Mutang, it will be known that the head of the Wu family was the one who ordered their murder. What do you think will happen then? He added that we can't forget the fact that Jin Hai was well aware of everything too. Although Gong Sa-chak is actually too dumb, he couldn't have a settlement book. And at the head office, he's lucky that Jin Hai is from the Wu family. But it only takes a little scare from the bastard, and he immediately believes that he is in a losing position. Wu Moon-hyum asked what he wants. Jin Mu replied that the position of Mutang's head disciple. Let him promise that his son, Jin Hai, will help the guy do it. The man shouted that it was nonsense. Everything was at stake for Jin Hai to become the supreme elder. Jin Mu said, let him listen first and then decide. Does he really think he won't get anything for helping? If he helps, he will in turn promise to give Jin Hai the position of supreme elder. He's enough to be the head disciple. He doesn't need more than that. Firstly, he wanted to master the dual energy technique. And secondly, he wanted a subordinate supreme elder. The position of chief disciple, the starting point to master dual energy. But he felt that it was too tedious for him to hold the position of supreme elder all the time. It is much more profitable to set up an opponent with dirt on him and use him as a puppet, controlling him from the shadows. The man didn't understand why he wanted the position of head disciple if he didn't want to take the position of supreme elder. Does he think he's stupid enough to believe such nonsense? Jin Mu asked. Did he not understand what he was saying? Did he not get the meaning of his words? When he approached the man, he said he didn't need help from W's family. He didn't want to cause himself any trouble. He doesn't have the right to choose. If he refuses, Jin Mu will wipe out the Wu family right away. Wu Moon-hyum told the guy that he was just a pathetic braggart. Jin Mu felt a strong, murderous energy, and his breath came out in fear. Even though he was at Hyungi's level and activated the energy of his entire body, the external pressure is difficult to withstand. Is this guy really on the level of Ganga? But maybe even higher. What does Wu Moon-hyum think prevented Gong Sa-chak from killing him and made him go to the main trade guild? It's not that he didn't kill him, it's that he failed. It's true what they say, you don't know until you've done it. Wu Moon-hyum didn't realize what it was. Who the hell was he? That indifferent gaze, as if speaking about his past, the many wars he'd been through, and those countless murders. Wu Moon-hyum couldn't understand why the young novice had him like this. It was like he was a devil who had come for him. Jin Mu said he was waiting for Jin Hai's help. He said goodbye and just left. Wu Moon-hyum thought for a moment. He believes that Jin Mu is not a disciple of the first generation of Mutang. This guy isn't a novice, or even his opponent. This is something perfect that he'll never understand. The servants ran up to him and asked if he was all right. He asked them to bring him some writing utensils to send a message to Jin Hai. The next day, the boys traveled to their hometowns. It took so long to get down the mountain, and the journey back flew by. The nasty Taoist life began again. Jin Mu couldn't understand what had gotten into the guy's head that he was resorting to hugging. The guy was just thrilled with his presence. He showed everyone the true spirit of Mutang. Jin Ho didn't even forget to thank his disciples. After all, they had also shown courage. The Supreme Elder, the elders, and even the senior disciples have all gathered and are waiting for them. The first-generation disciple, Jin Mu, greeted the Supreme Elder, and everyone gathered there. Myung-hyun said he was good. The head of Takana's head office notified them of his active activities. They, not knowing the true nature of the main trade guild, would have made a big mistake if it wasn't for him. But even better, they had wiped out the Nook bandits, disturbing the locals, thus turning their attention to Mutang. He glared angrily at the boy. The head of the Wu family should have already warned him that he would have to help the guy, but he still pisses him off. Now they can't use the money they took from the guild. What should they do? They should send them back to the administration. He heard that Jin Mu had received a reward. It's a pity they didn't work out with the guild. But the guy was trying to catch the bandits for the sake of his clan. The guy didn't realize what he was getting at. Jin Mu hoped to the last that it wasn't what he thought. He wouldn't take his money, would he? And then the mentor tells the guy to give all the money to Elder Myung Seong. Not far from Chongho Temple, there's a shrine called Samgun. It's very quiet, nobody comes there. He made this cave his personal meditation room. From now on, he must become even stronger, to become the chief disciple and take over the political alliance. That old man the mysterious and powerful master he still knew nothing about. Thoughts of him kept running through his head. The technique he used, using gravity to gather energy and increasing pressure to make it explode. That was when he first saw a technique that completely ignored martial arts techniques. These amazing movements. He can replicate the old man's technique, but it's a bit off from what he really needs. In the past, when he was Hukermungen, he managed to become an absolute ruler with the help of Soppa's art. But nowadays, he can't use the same skills, of course. There are many reasons for that, but the most important one is that he lacks chi energy. The core of the martial art of Chanpa is enlightenment. When one crosses the wall of enlightenment, known as the wall of weeping, the volume of all the chi energy that has been accumulated increases dramatically to support enlightenment. If enlightenment has not been achieved, the increase in chi energy is insignificant, even with diligent training. This is the specialty of Zhang Pa's martial arts. He had already reached Kang's level in the past, so he wouldn't be able to face her again. In fact, one can use Mutang martial arts without any problem, but there is a limit to the power of these martial arts due to the lack of energy. The dual energy technique, the only way out of this situation. Until then, he would have to move out to prepare a meal for his mentor. He should spend all his training time accumulating chi energy to make up for the lack of it. That's the best thing Jinmu can do right now. Upon his return, the guy noticed that his students were not practicing. He overheard their conversation. Qion Wu talked about the money that was given to the bank office. He thought that the elders would be happy about that money. They could only take money from the account the teacher had set up for them. Suddenly, a cuckoo flew into his head, but with Jinmu's legs. Teacher asked. Qion Wu had already forgotten what kind of labor it took to get them. You forget how much you invested to get that goddamn money. Stinking fatso, are you out of your mind? Suddenly, a mentor appeared and asked Jinmu what happened. Did Qion Wu do something wrong? Qion Sang decided to support Jinmu. He told his mentor that the master was trying to teach Qion Wu a new technique. The boy walked up to his mentor and asked if he could go out like that. He's worried that he's not getting worse again. Today, the mentor caught pheasants and suggested we eat them together. Jinmu wondered, how could he catch them? The mentor replied that even an old man like him could handle it. When the old man sees him full of vigor, he is somehow calmer in his heart. He was worried sick. When the boy came back, he looked tired. It is difficult for the mentor to move quickly because of his illness, but for his sake, he will give everything. If so, why did he ask to give the reward to others? Still, Jinmu doesn't know the reason for his lifelessness? Stupid mentor. Jin Ho came with news. He told his mentor that there was a commotion on the mountain. If he goes, he'll understand. At Jaiso Palace, a bunch of people gathered in the practice area. What's going on there? A supreme elder approached them. The mentor asked him what all this meant. The elder replied that it was all thanks to Jinmu. His disciple is blessed by heaven. They decided to order a new set of clothes for each of Mutanga's students from the cloth shop, and a headdress and shoes to tidy up. Jinmu became nervous. They decided to order clothes for all the students for 200 coins, but suddenly Myung Sung said that it was all free. Despite the Supreme Elder's denials, they said the bandits would have taken away their money if not for Jinmu. And that's not all. Takana's Forge said they would make weapons for everyone. The mentor said it really worked out well. Myung Gong added that there was something else surprising. The money they received from the guild, which they had given away, was returned to them. Store managers in Takana learned of Mutang's plight, so they raised money to help. A total of 500 coins came out. Jinmu didn't realize what was happening yet. They have been contacted by several guilds. They want to renew their relationship with Mutang. To settle this, the first-generation disciples with Jin Kuan went down to Takana. Jinmu was furious, all because of the ungrateful merchants from Takana. Why are they paying Mutang for the kindness shown to them? Since the Supreme Elder got 500 coins, let him give a guy back his blood 200 if he has a conscience.